Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто води всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 743 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And whoa, Jack, welcome back.
And welcome back, of course, everyone, to day 743 of the news of the war in Ukraine. Tonight, while everyone else is deciding to get into things that are verboten on this channel, our channel will be continuing on the nightly news coverage of what is happening inside of Ukraine as the heroic defense of Ukraine still goes on over 2 years later. Not only that, we've gotten unbelievable news today from inside of the Russian Federation that the US Embassy and the British Embassy have warned the Russians that there is an attack coming and have pleaded with the American and British citizens still inside of Russia to take shelter and to wait out the next 48 hours so that way they are not a victim of this major attack that is being spoken of by both the American and British embassies. It has been a huge day, not only for that, but for many other reasons, but it is an insane day. And I gotta say that I don't even know how in the world to segue us into this. And also, really quickly, one other thing, I'd like to give a huge shout out early. We'll, of course, be addressing this a little bit later on in the stream, but a massive shout out to Griffon Provenzano, who threw in a $500 super chat in the 10-minute countdown. A huge shout out to Griffon.
Man, he put in the limit. Like, YouTube won't even let you put in more than that. Huge shout out. That's one of the biggest super chats ever.
Yeah, and Griffin said part 1 of 2. Sadly, Griffin, that is the cap. The YouTube doesn't allow a person to throw in more than $500 in 24 hours. But we do thank you so much. And if you want to throw in part 2 in the live chat, I'm 100% Matthew will grab it and we will address it all as one big comment. But nevertheless, we are going to be moving on into tonight's breaking news. And we got massive news out of Moscow today that the US and British embassies have given warning and have given pretty much the entire Russian Federation an alert. According to the statement from the US embassy is monitoring reports that extremists have imminent plans to target large gatherings in the city of Moscow, the capital of the Russian Federation, to include concerts, and US citizens should be advised to avoid large gatherings over the next 48 hours and practically shelter in place and avoid large gatherings of any kind. This is a major move by a US embassy to pretty much telegraph in advance that they have some kind of information that the Russians aren't even privy to, that there is going to be a major terroristic attack of some kind that happens within Russia. We don't even really know a lot of details. The United States and the UK is being very cryptic about the kind of information that they're releasing and what may be about to unfold inside of the Russian Federation. We do not know if this is a furtherance of the Ingushetia Liberation Army's actions that are still ongoing inside of the region of Ingushetia. We have no idea if this is a anti-Putin partisan campaign, if this is the beginning of some kind of a Russian coup attempt or a Russian civil war. We have absolutely no clue what this statement means from the embassy, but it is very ominous. And not only that, it is the first time that the U.S. Embassy has pleaded for American citizens inside of Russia to avoid large gatherings and practically shelter in place until this warning is over. Most times when actually every single time before this, when the U.S. Embassy is speaking about an event that is unfolding inside of Russia, they have always begged American citizens to leave the Russian Federation. Apparently, what is about to happen in the next 48 hours is such a severe and grave danger to the safety and lives of American citizens in Russia that they're not even asking Americans to leave. They are asking Americans to avoid large crowds, specifically in Moscow, and to pretty much remain wherever they are, inside of hotels, inside of apartments, and just to wait out the next 48 hours.
It's kind of curious that American citizens would be in Russia whatsoever at this point, considering like the tensions between America and Russia. It's like, what are they even doing there?
It's actually a great question, Matthew. What in the hell are Americans doing inside of the Russian Federation at this point, 2 years after? You know, beyond Tucker Carlson, who apparently didn't even like his trip to Russia, now in hindsight, now that he's been speaking about it, there are some Americans who are still inside of Russia, and we have absolutely no idea why. And a lot of people are talking about, why in the world should the embassy even have made this statement? It should be considered, a lot of people are considering it to be a matter of fact, that if an American citizen is in Russia and currently gets wounded or killed by some kind of an attack or some kind of action by military forces such as Ukraine, that is what it is. They should have had a little bit more sense over the past 2 years to be able to get out of there, so that way they don't end up being the victim of some kind of attack. Other people are saying that the United States, regardless of what these citizens are doing or the reasons that they are inside of the Russian Federation, owe a responsibility to the U.S. citizenry to let those who are in Russia at the moment know that there is an imminent attack and to shelter in place. There have been many, many different kinds of ideas, mindsets, and aspects on what this really means and why in the world should the embassy even be telling these people anything for that matter. But Matthew, I know that a lot of people have had a whole bunch of opinions, a lot of different ones actually, on what these embassies should be doing for American citizens that are inside of Russia, and also what may be happening as a result of this statement. What prompted the statement to be made at all by the American and British embassies. But Matthew, I have a feeling that a lot of people in the chat right now have a lot to say about it, because the chat is going insane.
So yes, we asked the audience, what are your thoughts on U.S. officials warning U.S. citizens to avoid crowds in Russia due to possible terrorist attacks? 48%, the majority, said they should not be in Russia anyway. 33% said Russia will start persecuting Americans, and 12% said it's just a precaution and not a big deal. And on this one, I'm really honestly a little bit confused. Like a lot of the people who usually analyze this war, there seems to be no precursor to this coming out. I'm not sure why all of a sudden U.S. citizens would need to avoid crowds inside of Russia, because to me, I'm like, really, first of all, what are the Americans doing there? They really shouldn't be in Russia. And second of all, what's going to happen to the Americans specifically that is dangerous for them to go out into crowds? So I'm at a bit of a loss, but I'm going to say I'm with the 48%. They shouldn't be in Russia, and if they're there and something happens, you kind of had it coming to you. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would largely have to agree with your opinion on that. However, I'm a little conflicted because, of course, as many of y'all know, I would hope to have some political aspirations in the future and become the president of the United States. And while I strongly detest and greatly disagree with the fact that there are any Americans inside of Russia at all, and in my honest opinion, I would have to say that American citizens who are in the Russian Federation shouldn't have even been allowed to go there in the first place. We should have said that we were going to revoke travel permissions on U.S. passports into the Russian Federation at all, pretty much forbidding any American from having Russia as a travel destination from the United States, or if they were to travel over a border, say, from the Baltics or Georgia, and then into Russia, that could be considered to be some kind of a anti-American action, possibly when they return home, and lead to some sort of an investigation. Because the fact that Americans are going into a country that is currently openly hostile to American interests is pretty bizarre. But beyond that, we do know of a small amount of them there. Regardless of that, I still think that the United States government has to emphasize the safety of American citizens, even when they may not be existing in the best of America's interests, or even inside of rival countries, for example, the Russian Federation. So going off of that, I feel like we do have a duty to let these people know that there is a grave danger to their lives and their safety, but at the exact same time, I'm very conflicted on that, because why the hell are they even in there? So that's why I would have to say I'm with with most of y'all in the chat right now, that they shouldn't even be in Russia anyways. But I still feel like we kind of owe them a responsibility to let them know that there is a danger, because they are, after all, our citizens. They are our sons and daughters of America, regardless whether we agree with what they're doing or not. And just for that matter, we kind of owe them at least a small courtesy to tell them Russia's about to get bombed here in a bit by someone, who knows who. And maybe, hang out inside of your apartment or your hotel for a couple of days until this passes over. I hope that
what's even worse here, though, is the American embassy is warning the U.S. citizens in Russia specifically not to go out into crowds, as if these American citizens were participating in some kind of public display for either Russia's benefit, which I'm assuming that would be the case, because Russia doesn't allow anybody to come out and say anything against the regime. So, the fact that these people are American citizens and out participating in crowds and things like that in Russia indicates to me that maybe they might not be the best of U.S. patriots in the world.
I would have to agree, but some people are actually bringing up some very good points in the chat, which kind of make me have to soften things up a little bit, because some people are saying, what if these Americans that are in Russia are dual citizens and a lot of their families inside of Russia? And that's where things get a little difficult, because are we really going to try and criminally prosecute someone, let's say in a hypothetical where, my prior idea comes into being, are we going to try and criminally prosecute someone who may not be for the Russian government but just wanted to visit their family? That starts to get into a little bit of a rough area where the line in between right and wrong and what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing for American citizens abroad in Russia becomes a little bit more murky. But nevertheless, I would still be on the by and large, beyond that exception at the moment, which many people are rightfully pointing out in the chat. I would have to say that a lot of Americans who may be there, for example, Patrick Lancaster, certainly aren't there to visit family. They are Americans, and they're not really operating in America's best interests. And those kinds of citizens maybe need to have a little bit of extra attention focused on them and see why in the world are they operating in America's detriment. But moving on from this big news inside of Moscow, this coincides with something that happened actually two things that happened in Europe today simultaneously that may be showing that this is not just connected to possible extremist actions or terroristic actions in Russia. This may actually be connected to what's happening in Europe as a whole, because many people may know, and many people were really proud to hear today, that the U.S. Department of State, which is the body responsible for accepting new NATO members, officially accepted Sweden into the NATO alliance. And as of today, March 7th of 2024, Sweden's flag is now joined by the rest of NATO's flags as a NATO member, making it the 32nd country to join NATO. And it's a massive welcome for them. They have been a huge supporter of Ukraine, and not only that, have been starting to lean towards a very strong Western alignment ever since even the middle part of the Cold War in the 1970s. It is amazing to see that another nation has been able to join the West here in NATO, and hopefully, together, standing side by side, Sweden and the rest of the alliance will be able to stand strong against the Russians and show them that their intimidation tactics and strong arm or strong manning will not work well against the NATO alliance and the nations of Europe. Speaking of which,
it's a good thing to join because it's a really good club to be in. It's a lot of military behind the club, and since Sweden hadn't been in it for a while, until they start stocking up and building up their military to are they already at NATO standards, by the way? Before I say that, are they already there?
Oh, they are, no doubt about it.
Okay, never mind then. They're already there, so they're just joining the alliance, and they're going to contribute a hell of a lot themselves as well now that they're in it.
Let me actually show y'all, because a lot of people think that Finland and Sweden may be a little bit behind the curve, like Matthew did, but while their militaries are small, and let me make sure that I'm getting this correct, right now, the Swedish military is around 25,000 strong, the entire Swedish armed forces, with around 32,000 soldiers in reserve. So one of these smaller militaries in Europe, but they are no joke at all. They have some of the most advanced military equipment, in my opinion, across the entirety of Europe. Let me show y'all a few of the things that they have that are kind of solid, kind of nice. Let me see if I can actually get us the equipment list here. And I can't find the specific equipment list. Let me see if I can actually find that. Swedish Armed Forces equipment. So, here is the equipment of the Swedes. First off, their primary service pistol is a Glock.
Hey, good on them for that. Glock 19, that's solid, man. Like, I know you can trash on it all day long. You say it looks like crap, it doesn't have a safety, but it's a solid gun. It works when you need it to.
Their primary service rifle, or their former standard issue rifle, it's been replaced by another, more modern and nice rifle, was the AK-4, or aka the German G3. These are fairly alright. To be honest, I'm not really a big fan of them, but they operate very similar to a FAL. So pretty nice overall, really nice rifle, pretty solid. But that's not the rifle they use today. Let me see if I can actually find y'all the main service rifle they have on the list. And this is it. The AK-5C. Some of y'all may know this, actually. This is actually a weapon that is your starter weapon, I believe, in Battlefield 4. So if you ever played Battlefield 4, you know what the AK-5 is. But beyond that, it's not that bad. I'd have to say that the front furniture does look a little wonky, but nevertheless, it is a pretty solid weapon from what I've heard. Pretty neat overall, and also the trigger guard has this weird little divot in it, so that way you can use the gun while wearing a glove, which is a huge thing for the Swedes, considering that they fight in cold environments. Moving on from that, let me show you a little bit of what else they have. They have G-Wagons.
Oh, look at that. It's a It's an older one, but it looks nice though. It looks pretty good.
They have the
That
six-wheel
thing.
G-Wagons.
Is that a six-wheel G-Wagon or is that some kind of other thing?
No, that's a six-wheel G-Wagon.
Huh. Looks a little odd in the front, but I guess it could be.
It's got the Mercedes logo. It counts.
Is that a
It
Mercedes?
counts.
I really can't see it that well. I'll take your word for it though.
They have these.
That's not that great.
No, not really.
Looks like the front grill of a mail truck.
Matthew, listen, I know, it's hard to impress us because we've seen everything these days, but they do have 600 Ford Rangers.
Oh, now that's just a good workhorse right there.
That's pretty solid. And then what else do they have? Well, a couple of things. First off, they have these really nice, what I call an elongated VAB. It's called a Zizu by the Finns. The Swedes call it this unpronounceable thing. Sorry to all the Swedes here. But nevertheless, this is pretty much just an elongated VAB, or what the Finns call a Zizu. A fairly reliable APC, and we've actually seen these in Ukraine a good bit, provided by the Finns, not by the Swedes. But beyond that, they also have this pretty cool MRAP right here. Looks kind of like a souped-up G-Wagon again. They apparently love G-Wagons a little bit. But beyond that, moving on from that, they also have probably one of my favorite infantry fighting vehicles as far as its appearance, the CV-90.
That's pretty clever. I'll tell you what, out of all the vehicles, that's probably looking the best. Their G-Wagons are a little bit too, I want to say not basic really, but they're a little bit too bare bones, I think.
Maybe a little too bare bones, but nevertheless, they also have Stridswagen 122s, which are Swedish license-built Leopard 2s.
Yeah, I was about to say it looks like a Leopard, but you know, they got the private brand it and private label it its own tank. That's pretty cool though.
Man, this thing be boolin'. Honestly, this thing is actually better than a Leopard. Due to some small ergonomics upgrades, but the only reason it's better is because the Swedes have these things in limited numbers, only a mere 110 of them, with about 10 of them donated to Ukraine. But moving on from that, we can see their mortar systems. They of course have the Archer, SPG. A few of those have been provided to Ukraine. And then getting down here, their navy is pretty neat. They have these things called the Visby, which I believe are some kind of an attempt at creating a low visibility Corvette. Pretty modern, pretty advanced, and just kind of neat.
Why is it wearing a dunce cap though?
Well, that's it, because
it's wearing a dunce hat, man.
Well, dude, it'd be making the Russians look like some clowns. They also have the Gothenburg class, which is a really cool Corvette.
Quite nice, I like.
Quite nice, quite sleek. And then they also have these, actually we're not going over the minesweepers and patrol boats, forget that. They also have these Gotland class submarines.
Oh, gotta have some, man. I like
Pretty
it.
nice. They have a Sodermanland class submarine right here as well.
Looks like a narco boat.
All right. Not impressed. Okay, that's okay. That's
No.
all right. Well, they do have these Gripens.
No, I'm impressed with that. I like the Gripen.
The Gripen-
Saab makes a nice jet.
The Gripen is solid. The Gripen is bussin'. The Gripen do be grippin'. We also have a whole bunch of kind of support aircraft. They also have a couple of AWACS. These are their AWACS, the S-100s. Pretty cool looking.
Very nice. It looks like it's carrying a steel girder on top of it, but it works.
Man, you're not impressed by nothing. Get the hell out of here.
It's a little bit left field, like I'm being perfectly honest here. Some of their stuff looks good, but some of it's a little bit different.
Well, beyond the helicopters, which I know you're not going to be impressed by, they have this Italian, I forgot what these things are called. It's like an Augusta or something like that, but fairly cool. I like them.
It's called a Swift Bravo in GTA 5, by the way, if anyone's curious, because nobody wasn't.
All right. Well, they also have some Blackhawks.
Oh, and that's nice. That's nice. I like that. A little bit of American.
They have these.
Oh, yeah, I like those, definitely.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. We actually showed those on the show yesterday. They're the UH-90s. But nevertheless, pretty decent armed forces, in my opinion at least. A little small, but still, they make up for that in quality. But moving on from that, and on out of the Swedish armed forces, they are up to NATO standards. And I know Matthew is not going to believe that. He's going to be like, that is not NATO standard. It actually is. They're way above NATO standards for the most part, because countries like Denmark and Norway are actually usually fairly behind the curve compared to everyone else as far as their military goes. The Danish were using M1 Garens up until about the 1970s and 80s, and then they finally replaced them. The M1 Garand, by the way, was the service rifle of the U.S. military during World War II, and was also the service rifle from 1935 up to World War II, so pretty old by the time the Danes retired it, and also the Norwegians did the same. But moving on from that little bit of news, we also got to hear that apparently the French may be adding to the angst that led to the U.S. and British embassies telling people to hide inside of Russia over the next 48 hours, as President Macron came out today and said that the support that France has for Ukraine is what they call at Olive Garden, unlimited soup and salad, and said that there was no limits on France's support for Ukraine. I gotta say, France do be bullin', and I don't know what is going on, but they've completely reversed course from what they were doing in the first year of the war, and they are now going hardcore aggressive on the Russians, and also on their pro-Ukrainian stance. Gotta say, in all honesty, nothing but respect to them for that, and hopefully many countries will continue to follow in step, and kind of walk that fine line in between being a staunch Ukraine supporter and plunging us into world war. It's a very fine line, actually, and hopefully the French will be the masters of walking that line and making sure that we don't tip over to the other side. Speaking of tipping over to the other side, it appears that Zaluzhny, after being dismissed from his position as Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, has been given a new position, and one that probably comes with a lot of prestige and a decent amount of honor. He is actually being proposed to be the Ukrainian ambassador to the United Kingdom, of all places. A really high honor, considering Britain was the first country in the world to support Ukraine with material equipment. This is big news.
That seems like that'd be a pretty tough change in careers to go from a military man to an ambassador. So you're going from a get things done type of perspective more to a I'm going to talk my way into making us all get along type deal. It seems like that might be a rough transition.
It kind of does seem like it would be a rough transition, but luckily, the job of the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK is one that's already set in stone because the British are dead locked on being a huge supporter of Ukraine, so I don't think he'll have to do too much legwork, but if he does, best of luck to him, because that is a huge shift from being the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine and now just being an ambassador to the United Kingdom. But moving on from that, we also got to hear that apparently he's not going to be having to do too much of a sales pitch, because the Ukrainians might be in the money here very soon from none other than the Swiss. Many people have given the Swiss heat over the course of the war because they are a neutral country, and a lot of people do not understand Swiss neutrality. I would like to say to the Swiss viewers we have here tonight, because I know there are some, I said hello to y'all in the 10-minute countdown, that I understand Swiss neutrality, and honestly, I respect it. You got to give a massive amount of respect to the Swiss, because largely throughout the past 200 years, ever since the Congress of Vienna in 1815, the Swiss have been strictly neutral, and very rarely have ever broken their neutrality, and are militant on enforcing it. It's one thing that I actually respect about the Swiss. You've got to respect a country that believes in a principle like neutrality, and takes it to the nth degree, and does it very well over 200 years. However, I will say this, it appears that Swiss neutrality may actually be coming to an end here in the near future, as Switzerland is actually talking about using seized Russian assets from inside of the Swiss Confederation to give over to Ukraine to support their rebuilding efforts. The amount is a total of nearly $8.5 billion, according to the Swiss Congress. And it's very interesting to hear that the Senate of the Swiss government has asked the government to use the funds to give to Ukraine. This is something that could actually violate Swiss neutrality completely, as it's not taking a humanitarian approach to Ukraine and only helping out by Switzerland's charity. It's actually taking punitive action against the Russian Federation directly by seizing their assets and then liquidating them and sending the funds directly to Ukraine for them to use against the Russians. This is probably the most aggressive move that Switzerland has made over the past, actually they took some pretty damn aggressive moves throughout most of their history, but beyond that, it's probably one of the most aggressive diplomatic moves that the Swiss have made ever since the Congress of Vienna in 1815. Nothing but respect to the Swiss for doing that. Really impressive to see, and I have to say that while it's a turn in Switzerland's pages of history, where they're now moving from being a strictly neutral country to more so being a Western aligned country, hopefully they can continue to maintain that special Swiss culture that everyone knows around the world, where you can always do something heinous in another country and run to Switzerland and they'll act like you did nothing. Big respect to the
Man,
Swiss.
the Swiss are like excellent at that. Like, if you bring the Swiss money, it's like the Swiss like become like blind and deaf all of a sudden. It's like, well, what do you say? It's like, well, they're taking the money out of their hand. I didn't see anything, and it throws it in the bank, and it's like, okay, thank you. And everybody will be like, well, wait a minute, you just took money from a terror group. They're like, took money from who? and they'll literally hoard the money from all these like nasty people all the way around the world, and like you said, pretend like they didn't even do it.
Dude, they'll sit there and take the money, and then the U.S. is like, you just took money from Al Qaeda. What money? Just that money. I didn't see any money. You know, you got it in the bank. We don't have nothing in the bank. But also a lot of people.
Nobody can ever call Switzerland a rat. That's one thing that they'll never have on them.
Man, Switzerland's like, I might be small, but I ain't no bitch. They're like, we're not snitching
Yeah.
out nobody. But also another thing about Switzerland is that they are just, they're absolutely incredible. I mean, with their neutrality. Some people don't like it, and I'm not actually being sarcastic here. I think Swiss neutrality is actually a fairly good thing in some instances. Because what other country can you go to? You know, like, let's say you're from Ukraine and you want out of there. What other country in the world is so neutral that while they're about to give over seized assets to Ukraine to help them fund their war effort, that you can bribe Ukrainian border guards to escape Ukraine, travel across multiple European countries, move into Switzerland, and start living there full time, and no one asks a single question about how in the world you even got there when the Ukrainians are asking European countries like Germany to start returning able-bodied men who fled the country earlier on in the war because they were never supposed to in the first place. You gotta respect Switzerland for that, because it's insane to see a country that is so neutral. They will let anything fly. I mean, that is actually pretty impressive, and I gotta give a huge shout out to the Swiss for being that neutral. Also, Charles Olinger is completely correct. Switzerland is really expensive. It is actually one of the most expensive countries on Earth, and Jay Casey is also correct in saying that the Swiss military is no joke. They are actually armed to the teeth, and service in the Swiss military is mandatory for all males in the country, meaning that Switzerland's entire nation is an entire body of men, or population of men in the country, is an armed force in and of itself, which is also pretty wild. But moving on from that, and out of Switzerland, it's time for us to start moving on down into Bulgaria. Bulgaria is a really interesting country, and one that has a very special history. But one part of history that they're being a special member of right now is being a material supplier of war materials to Ukraine. And we got to see some pictures of them taking some of their older Soviet stocks that the Ukrainians would love to have, the two S-1 Skizivkas and BRDMs, onto rail cars and transporting it up through Romania and on into Ukraine. We can see the BRDMs, the BRDM2s here in more or less better or worse conditions, but still, these little vehicles are actually pretty nice. The BRDM2s are a light scout car equipped with a small turret and a 14.2mm machine gun. Their only job is, well, back in the day, their only job was to move up to the front lines and figure out where enemy forces may be, or to do some light scouting work. These vehicles are going to be helping out the Ukrainians massively with conducting recon where there may be a shortage of drones in some areas of the front line, and will hopefully be helping them out greatly. Of course, the artillery is a well-needed addition, and while being older Soviet vintage and using older Soviet ammo, it's still another artillery piece that the Ukrainians can use, and therefore increasing the overall amount of firepower that can be levied on any area of the front line. A huge shout out to Bulgaria for once again being another amazing friend that Ukraine can count on. Speaking of friends, the Russians are running out of them, because apparently someone got pissed off enough that they called the tank school on fire today in Kazan. We got a video of it showing the fire raging at the tank school. It's the Tanker Command School specifically, where a lot of the Russian tank forces get their experienced tank commanders. You can see the school on fire right there.
Oh, they can live without that, man. They didn't learn anything in there anyway. You can pretty much boil the training down to two group, remember two group.
Dude, that's what they were yelling to the firefighters when they were running in with the hoses. They said, wait, two group. That's it's like, man, two group this. But anyways, this is great to see. And also, by the way, another thing to share with all of y'all is that the T-14 Armada's last known location was at that tank school. So if someone was able to catch the actual school on fire, I have a feeling that they'll probably be able to get close enough to the Armadas that eventually one of those will spontaneously combust, although they kind of already do that from what we know already. But moving on from that little bit of news inside of Russia, just that tiny little bit of news, we also got to hear that that Russia's third largest steel plant got a hit today, and we got to see the impact of the drone from inside the plant on security camera. Here's the clip. Now, usually when we watch these kinds of videos on the internet, there would be a little watermark up here in the top right that would say live leak. In case if y'all didn't know, that was a golden age on the internet of seeing some of the most heinous things possible, and it was just unfiltered. We filter stuff here on this channel, and thankfully YouTube filters a good amount of that stuff as well, because I'll promise y'all, the clips weren't worth watching. But here's the clip of this drone hitting the steel plant. We see them playing the security footage. And a bada boom, and there goes the ceiling.
Man. It wasn't exactly a live leak, but it was an old one. And they got smacked.
Man, that was a smoky leak right there. Man, someone get on the air filters up in here. But nevertheless, nice to see the Ukrainians were able to hit another steel plant. We don't know how severe the damage was to that one because that's the only video we got. But nevertheless, the Ukrainians are starting to strike rapidly at Russian steel manufacturers, trying to cut down once again on heavy industry that is producing materials for the war effort. Moving on from all of the international news today, we are not touching on we are not touching on that because I was thinking I've seen some people try and bring it up a little bit tonight. I'm not touching on anything that is going on here in America at this point. We are a no politics channel. I'm not doing it. So sorry, everyone. Oh, damn. But anyways, moving on from that and down into the area of Odessa, we got to see some Ukrainian mine layers laying down those mines. They're on the boats. And, of course, notice this, Matthew. We have two guys right here standing close to each other, and then we got two guys right here kind of standing a little bit further away from each other, but still kind of close enough. Close enough for me to go, two group, lad.
You know, they really meant when they said two group to the Russians. They said it takes two group to carry out the dead Russians. Go get them. A two group, go get them.
Man, two group. But moving on from that and that cheesy joke, it's time for us to move on out of the area.
Yeah, man, you call my joke cheesy?
No, I called my own joke cheesy. Dang, man.
Nah, man.
Nah, man, you know what I mean? Oh, man. Matthew, your jokes aren't cheesy. They're good. They're quality, man.
Yeah, they're not cheesy, man. Get it right. They're cringe.
Dang, okay. I was giving you an out. You just executing yourself. It's like
I was just looking for accuracy. That was it.
Man, the KGB, you're one of the people who the KGB takes out to execute, and they're like, we're going to execute you. And you're like, nah, man, let me do it. And they're like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Let him cook.
No, Blad, don't let him cook. Take it away. Two group.
Dude, the KGB doesn't execute you because they're like, this guy's a little too adamant about executing himself. But anyways, moving on from that and into the location unknowns, we got to see a Russian conduct a magic trick today. Of course, with the copyrighted music playing.
That was good music with that, by the way. The fast-moving soldier here.
You know, something like that. But anyways, you see the Russian right here with a Joker face. Look at him. The bottom of his face is like brown or something, and the top of his face is white. This guy is like the Joker Russian form. He's the Joker at home. He's about to go, you guys want to see a magic trick? Man,
that's straight up fear.
When a Russian attacks Ukraine, no one bats an eye. But when I attack my wife, people go crazy. There's the magic trick. He disappeared. And that's the end of that.
That dude looked like he was on something.
Well,
the key word was.
Dude, he was hooked on phonics. And I think that he's no longer hooked on phonics. Yep. Yeah, I don't think he was. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And we're now going to be moving on into our next one, where we got to see a rare picture of a TB2 Bayraktar in Ukrainian service. So rare these days. We hardly see these things even in the Ukrainian military anymore. But we got to see one right here. We got to see the Ukrainians posing for the camera. From what we know, this is probably one of the few Bayraktars left in Ukrainian service. A lot of them ended up getting shot down. due to them being massive drones that have a massive radar signature, and most Russian surface-to-air missile systems being able to actually shoot these things down. These things started to disappear around a year ago, but there are still a few left in service, and this is one of them. A absolute legend of the early phases of the war, when the Russians had no idea how to deal with any drones of any kind. And while the Russians have kind of gotten down the ability to deal with the Bayraktars, now it's the smaller FPV drones and recreational drones that the Russians have absolutely no idea of how to deal with, and really everyone in the world has no idea how to deal with the smaller FPV drones. But still, this thing, and looking at it, it is a legend. Matthew actually has a Lego kit in his office of a Bayraktar. They are just famous.
I sure do. Donated by Santiago Flores. I remember every single thing that a viewer has sent in. And I remember exactly who sent it in. And it's back here on my shelf still, and I always see it. And I'm like, that was so nice. And I love to have my own model Bayraktar back here, along with a whole fleet of Bobcats.
And it is cool. It is bussin'. And of course, we love the Bobcats as well. And a huge shout out to Santiago Flores for sending that really cool little Bayraktar, and also a Stugna, I think. But still, that's the end of that little clip of news right there. And we're moving on to our next one. We got to hear some really big news today. Zelensky is demobilizing the conscripts and sending them home. According to the presidential decree today, Zelensky has demobilized all of the conscripts, and they're now going to be discharged to the reserve in April to May of this year. Not that far from now, just about a month later, they're all going to be in reserve. So once again, the Ukrainian army is going to be completely back to being a contract force only for the most part. This is actually pretty wild, because from what we've heard for a good bit, the Ukrainian military, according to some people out there, some military analysts, if you want to call them that, say that the need for manpower in Ukraine is unbelievable, and the Ukrainians have pretty much been press ganging people off of the street and forcing them into the military. It appears that that isn't really the case, at least a dire need for manpower, because if they're demobilizing the conscripts, that shows us that the manpower situation is not that bad. That's never really happened in the middle of a full-scale war. But in the First and Second World War, neither side ever demobilized conscripts in the middle of the war. Once you were drafted into the military, you were there until the war was over. That's how it used to work back in World War I and World War II. So having a presidential decree demobilize all of the conscripts and send them into reserve is actually something that is fairly profound, and showing that the Ukrainian manpower issue is not bad at all. It's actually apparently quite manageable for the armed forces of Ukraine. But moving on from that, and into our Russian loss report, we got to see something fairly interesting here today.
Ooh, another 5 Bobcats, I'm telling you, and another huge day of losses as well. How long can the Russians keep this up? I don't know.
Dude, that sounded like that sounded like the intro to a news clip. You're like, how much longer can the Russians last? I have no idea. But beyond that,
They better start changing their name or changing their ways.
Oh, man. But anyways, we got
Please
to see
clap.
what? Please clap. Please clap. It took me a minute, man, because it was supposed to be, you better start changing your ways, or maybe changing your names, and you got it backwards.
Oh, I got it backwards.
Yeah, you got it backwards.
Well, you can do both of them at the same time. You don't have to do it in sequence. Just do both of them.
Well, you know, if you vote for me, you put me in Congress. But anyways,
Whoa.
1,160 Russian soldiers were taken out over the past 24 hours, just like taking out the trash, and even easier than that. 51 armored personnel carriers were also destroyed, along with 53 supply trucks, 17 main battle tanks, which are fairly low quality, but we'll be getting to that later, 42 artillery pieces, 42 drones, 1 MLRS, 1 cruise missile, 5 special equipments, and apparently a ship. I don't remember a ship going down yesterday for that to be on the report, but we will look into that a little bit more, because that's not the Sergei Kodov. The Sergei Kodov was actually on yesterday's casualty report for the 6th. So this is new. I don't know where in the world that ship went down, but we're going to be looking into that a little bit more and figuring out what boat ended up getting wiped off the map today by the Ukrainian armed forces. But beyond that, it was an incredibly good day for the Ukrainian armed forces, and they were able to really put one over on the Russians and make sure that they went home crying and whining to the pappies. But speaking of which, the French are hell-bent on making sure that the Russians go crying back to their mammies and pappies, because they are absolutely on the warpath at this point as far as what they're saying publicly. And from what we know, France is kind of stating things ambiguously. We don't know what the hell they mean by they'll support them limitlessly, like I was saying a little bit earlier with the unlimited soup and salad deal, as far as French support goes for Ukraine. And a lot of people in the chat, as we've been covering the rest of this news and kind of getting on into Ukraine itself, have been speaking in depth on what that really means. What did the French actually mean by that statement? And Matthew, I see that a lot of people have many different ideas on what was really meant by that.
So it looks like 43% said France will go to war for Ukraine when it says it has no limits or red lines in reference to Ukraine. It looks like 29% said France will give a ton of equipment instead, and then 19% said France is just saying nice words. And I have a feeling it's a combination of those last two options. France is definitely going to give all the equipment that Ukraine's going to need that they can afford to give. But at the same time, I'm not really sure if France is really going to go to war for Ukraine. They may send soldiers in to help out with maintenance and things like that, and in those quote-unquote non-combat roles. But to actually send in a huge amount of troops to actually fight the war on Ukraine's behalf, I think that might be a far way off. I think France might only do that if the West was actually to get involved because maybe a NATO nation was attacked. Maybe France might jump in and assist with that. But I don't think they're going to go to war on Ukraine's behalf. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be honest. I'm kind of split in between the idea of them giving loads of equipment, which they're kind of already doing, or Krillin for Ukraine. I have no idea which one it would be. It's really tough because France's rhetoric is really strong, but rhetoric is one thing, action is another. North Korea has wildly, violently strong rhetoric and has had that for decades, but they never follow through. France could be doing something a little bit similar with their rhetoric, and that leads me to believe that it'll probably be nothing but support in terms of equipment. But for the armed forces, it'd be a little bit of the stretch. But then again, we haven't ever seen them do this before. This is a complete reversal from what the French have really been working towards, because the French were actually fairly big advocates about a year ago for some kind of a brokered peace in Ukraine. Not one where Ukraine would end up giving up territory, but nevertheless a peace. Now they're going more so down the if you want peace, prepare for war kind of a path, which is a complete reversal. So maybe they would, but I'm kind of still doubting it because France is a nuclear power and a major NATO member, and for those reasons alone, I have a feeling that their actions would be well reserved compared to just going into an all-out war in support of Ukraine. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least on what I'm thinking the French are doing at the moment. But nevertheless, we would love to hear more about what y'all think, not just in our question to y'all, but in the live chat. What do y'all think about this? What do y'all think it means? Do y'all think Macron really would go to war or not? Because we do read the chat. I read every single chat that comes in, and Matthew especially reads every single chat that comes in, and we will see what y'all are saying and consider it and think about it. And your microphone cut out so bad right there, Matthew. It went, I sink them all. And I went, what?
I said I scoured them all.
Man, I heard it sounded like you were turning into the Imperial Japanese Navy at Pearl Harbor. You're like, sink them all. And I was like, what do you mean? But anyways, moving on from that, it's time for us to start moving out of the location unknowns and on into our frontline news over the past 24 hours. And there's been a lot of active flashpoints over the front lines pretty much everywhere, all the way up from Kuzmivka and down into Krenki. But so many people have been talking and mentioning and chatting and commenting and questioning. Many people have. And I have to make sure that we address a few of these people, at least 3 of them, before we move on, because there's just so many good choice questions. And of course, we also have to thank a specific Lee Spring Army viewer for supporting the channel in a way that is literally the max. It's unbelievable. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so first up, we have that absolutely massive, tremendous donation from Griffin Provenazzo. And I almost mispronounced their last name, but thank you very much, Griffin, for that $500 donation. That is the max that YouTube will let you put in, and that means a lot. And thank you very much for supporting the channel in a huge way. He says, I've been watching the stream since around day 10 or so, but I've never shown support until now, and I hope this makes up for it. And he says, LSA spring back Lee Spring, and part 1 of 2.
And part 2, did it ever come, Matthew, in the live chat?
If it did come through, I might have missed it, but I don't think I saw it.
I have to say this. Griffin will not be able to throw in a part 2 to that super chat. The reason why, to explain this in case y'all don't know, is that there is actually a cap on the amount of support that you can send in a super chat over 24 hours. And that cap is $500. Griffin hit that cap, so he can't throw in any other super chat tonight, which is mental. Like, that is actually mental, and we are blown away, Griffin, by that support. It is literally the most support that a person can give in a single super chat. Period. YouTube does not allow anything greater than $500 in 24 hours. That is unbelievable, and I gotta thank you so much, massively, for the support. And I can't believe that you've been here since day 10. I've seen you in the live chat a little bit here and there, but that is insane to think that you've been here for 10 days and that you appreciate this channel so much that you would support the channel that greatly. And I see Griffin in the live chat saying, I tried, I'm more for money. It's for Tomboy Part 2. So let's see. Trying to see if anything else was thrown in. Let's see here. Not seeing anything yet, but I will be keeping an eye on the live chat, seeing if Griffin does throw in the part 2. But still, I gotta say that it's crazy to think that you've been watching this for so long and that you appreciate the channel that greatly, that you would support it this massively. It's something that I just can't even fathom. We rarely ever get super chats that are that big, and I feel like we always are undeserving of super chats that are that large, because it makes me feel like what we do is hardly worth that support. Honestly, my original inclination was to actually say, after that super chat was thrown in, and everyone doesn't need to throw in a super chat at all tonight because this channel will be well taken care of. And I just gotta say, it is unbelievable, Griffin, that you threw in that kind of support. I'm absolutely blown away. I'm absolutely speechless, and I feel like we don't even deserve that kind of support. But nevertheless, you're incredible, Griffin. I got to thank you so much once again for the unbelievable support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. It's really
and also Griffin said it's Matt, it's for the media fund, and we do have quite a nice media fund. I do say. Well, actually, do we have a media fund? I said that, but at the same time, do we even have one?
No, that's new. That's brand new.
It is new, actually.
That is brand spanking new. So if that's for the media fund, you just started off the media fund with a bang. And I got to thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible. And also, I see that Griffin Super Chat has actually brought in some questions about how does YouTube's monetary system work. That $500 super chat, YouTube is going to take 30% of that. So we get 70% of $500. We don't get $500 outright because the house takes a cut of it, pretty much is how YouTube works. That is not the way fundraisers work, because I see some people trying to say that YouTube also does that on fundraisers. They do not. That would be complete mistruth. YouTube actually takes 100% of the support that's put in towards a fundraiser and gives it directly to the nonprofit. They also cover all transaction fees, all accounting fees, and everything else that would require some expense. They cover all of that. So if you send in $500 to a fundraiser on Sunday, $500 goes to that nonprofit. If you send in $500 in the super chat, we only get 70% of it. And so that, I hope that clears it up a little bit, because I saw some people getting confused about how the monetary system works on YouTube. But it's one that we have to deal with for the most part. And it's one I'm kind of pretty okay with dealing with, because I'd rather do that than have like 20 different links, like a GoFundMe and buy me a coffee, and, you know, 9 million other ways that you can support the channel. I really just like doing it through super chats because it makes it clean, and it also makes it very transparent. Everyone gets to see the support that we get every single night, so it's not really like we're hiding anything behind the scenes. It's literally in the chat for everyone to see. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for that unbelievable, massive support, Griffin, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that did address that well, and thank you so much for just being a massive fan of the channel and appreciate and supporting it that much. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Noel Therian, who puts in a $50 donation, which is also very generous support as well. And thank you, Noel, very much. They said, You're welcome. And keep up the good work, and love you guys. And we love y'all too, I'm telling you what. And we're going to keep the good work up day in and day out, like we've been doing for, what is it, 2 years or something like that now?
And 2 years, yeah, over 2 years now.
2 years! Man, 2 years, man. It's hard to believe it's been 2 whole years. But yes, we will. And thank you very much for the support.
It's been 2 years and 2 weeks since we started running this channel. Actually, tomorrow will be 2 years and 2 weeks. But 2 whole years and 2 whole weeks, this channel has run 6 days a week, pretty much, without stopping, covering this news. And I gotta say, I thank you so much as well to Noel Therian, hopefully I'm saying that last name correctly, for throwing in your first super chat ever and wanting us to keep up the hard work. It means a lot. And I gotta say that it is something hilarious that back in the day, Super Chats, and I've started to notice this trend, Super Chats back in the day used to have questions attached, or history fun facts, but nowadays everyone just throws in support and says thank you. And I find it so funny because this channel has run for that long that almost everyone has run out of questions. There's not really that many questions that have gone unanswered over 2 years, and so people just throw in support and say thank you. But beyond that being funny to me to think that we've been around so long that we've answered all the questions pretty much, it's amazing to me to know that people still appreciate this channel so much, like you, Noel, that you would find it worthwhile to support. And much like Griffin, for your first time ever tonight, that is your first Super Chat. And I gotta thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep running, because folks like you make this thing possible. And just thank you massively once again for enjoying the channel and helping us to make this thing worthwhile. Oh, well, not worthwhile, but possible. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the frontline news.
All right, and the last one is going to go to Paul Schultz, who also solves the Morse code every night as well. He puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much for that support. He says, "It is my birthday." And also, happy birthday to Paul Schultz. I hope you're having a good one. He says, excuse me, "My birthday wish is that everyone asks their governments to do everything they can to help stop the war." And I agree.
And I agree. I second that. And I thank you so much for the support, Paul Schultz, and helping this channel to keep on running. And happy birthday to you as well, Paul Schultz. You are pretty much one of the most reliable Morse code decoders we have here on this channel. You've been here almost without fail every single night, every single day, of every single week, deciphering the Morse code message that we have in the first 10 minutes. It is crazy to think that you have been here doing that perfectly for so long. And the huge respect to you on your birthday of all days, March 7th of 2024. I hope that you had a great birthday. I wish that you had a great one. And I hope that this is like a little cherry on top of the whole birthday. But of course, the cake was the birthday itself and the time that you hopefully got to spend with family and friends getting to celebrate it. But beyond that, I would have to agree. I hope that everyone requests to their government does everything they can to help support and end this war. And instead of seeking to divide people and act like there is a righteous side and evil side, hopefully find a common ground amongst everyone, both the people who are apprehensive about the war and the people who are fully supportive of the war like all of us here, and find a way to get all of us on the same page and moving forward side by side to see the Western world, the United States, and not only that, liberty and democracy prevail across the entirety of the world. I gotta thank you so much.
Exactly, man. Since because obviously international security, that's an issue that should concern us all. It's like when we see Ukraine being invaded by Russia, and Ukraine was a perfectly functioning country all on its own until Russia went in with the military. That's an interest of all Americans and all Europeans and everyone around the world, that they succeed in their war to fight off the invaders. And that's not something that should get caught up in partisanship and things like that. That's just something that we should all support.
It is something that we all should support. And I believe that if people took for a moment a time, instead of trying to attack people, and to reason with people and to talk about the things that those people may care about and how this ties into what they care about, this probably would be something that everyone could support together. I'm always more so for everyone being united together behind a common cause, not for the same reasons, but still the same end results, so that way we can see the world move forward and progress in a way that would be beneficial to everyone, and not just beneficial to a few. And that's one thing that I think Ukraine is certainly a deal. It is a thing that would benefit everyone if it went our way, and that we won this war. That's something that I believe in completely. That's something that I'm going to be uncompromising in, and I know that many people would believe that as well if it was just spoken of the right way, and people talked about it in that light. I see some people talking about some things that may have happened today, maybe not, I don't know, but we are not going to be addressing that here on this channel. I want to make sure that I make that very clear tonight. I am not, well, now I have to say it because y'all know what I'm talking about. We are not going to be addressing the State of the Union here on this channel tonight. I know that many people are used to Ukraine war channels being very partisan in their political views and making them very clear. This is one thing that this channel will never do, is delve into partisan politics and to start picking sides on a domestic political level. This channel is far above that. We are entirely here to support Ukraine and support that alone, whether you are someone from one political group or the other, or whether you're a Russian that supports Ukraine, or whether you're an American that supports Ukraine. As long as you support Ukraine, you're welcome here. And we are not going to make a single demeaning comment or a single comment supportive of one group or the other. That is something that the Lee Spring Army simply does not do and never will do. And I hope that all people who consider themselves part of the Lee Spring Army never attempt to divide people out there off of what they may believe is a bad group of people, just because of their affiliations in one form or another, where they may be from or what they might support or what they might say. These people, if they support Ukraine, are your friends. These people are the folks that will help you to raise the flag of Ukraine and the Lee Spring Army over battlefields around the entire world, and to help us secure the kind of future that we would want for our children and our legacy to be imprinted on the pages of history for all time. You have to remember that that's the most important thing, is that we're not actually a very divided people, we're a very united people, and it's only the illusion of division that actually creates the problems and the divided foundation that we see today. I want to make sure that that's very clear on this channel, and I once again want to reiterate that we do not support any political speech, especially partisan political speech of any kind here on this channel. You can always be guaranteed that the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer will remain an apolitical group until its very end. But I thank you all so much once again for understanding that. I see so many people appreciating that about this channel in the chat, and I thank you all greatly. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And Matthew, I think that was our last question of this segment, if I'm correct.
And it was. That was the third one.
And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Happy birthday once again to you, Paul Schultz, and I hope that does address that very well, but also lay out the ambitions and the beliefs of the Lee Spring Army. And of course, if you agree with those beliefs, make sure to put an LSA in the chat, so that way we know that the Lee Spring Army is still strong and fervent behind its goals and ambitions. But moving on from that and on into our northeastern front, we got to see today that the 58th Brigade was conducting a small amount of recon near the Kuzmivka area, equipped with CZ Bren 2s, a fairly reliable and common rifle within the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The 58th Motorized Brigade was making sure to get some drippy pictures. The pic, of course, goes hard, and showing us what they do out there. Beautiful to see, and hopefully they got to conduct some really good recon and also get some beautiful picks that go hard. Moving on from that, we are now moving on into the Kremenna front line, where of course the Ukrainians are holding strong and attempting to stop the Russian push that is trying to move on outside of the Severonsky Forest. We got to see that the Russians were hit by some cluster munitions today that were fired by the 63rd Mechanized Brigade's MLRSs. And here's the clip. Chad music ensues as the cluster rounds level the place. Get him, baby! And here comes the FPV drone to hit the Russian Gred, and it missed, I think. It looks like it. Oh, actually it hit. It's burning the truck. Put a crosshair on that thing.
They sure did, to make sure you know what they hit.
That's the end of that clip.
This is the Lion Brigade.
Man, that thing be going grr. That thing grr. You know what I mean? You know.
That's like the Ukrainian intelligence, GUR, G-U-R.
Actually, dude, the Ukrainian intelligence is hilarious because I don't think it's the G-U-R. I think it's the G-R-U, like Gru from Despicable Me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's. Let me make sure. The G-R-U. Gru? It just pulls up Gru. But let's see. Okay, so wait a minute. Actually, let's see. Let me type in the Ukrainian Gru. Ukrainian. Yep, here we go. So it is the GRU, the GRU, the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, aka the GRU.
Maybe they got mixed up. Well, see, they say HUR right there too. It says emblem of the HUR on the little thing over there. The picture on the right.
Yeah, true.
And also says HUR, and then there's a GUR. Like they have both.
Also, I gotta say, whoever made this emblem has never looked at a map of the world, because one, they have the Russian Federation outlined as the country that the eagle, that the owl is protecting on this Ukrainian, emblem. A little odd. And then also, there are like 900 countries inside the European continent, and the European continent has melded into looking like Africa and Europe, like mixed into one.
I think they might be overcomplicating the situation a little bit.
A little bit, a little bit. I think someone needs to go through and look at this emblem and change it, because that ain't Ukraine down there on that icon. That ain't Ukraine. But also, by the way, I thought I'd show y'all something that is a little wild. Let's see. Finish here. Let me see if I can.
Certain devs said they forgot that Pangea was a long time ago. Yeah, it's like I think they're a little confused.
So
But it's still a cool like patch though, even though like the geography's not right. It's still pretty neat looking.
So if y'all want to see something else that's kind of like one of those things like that, where you go, huh, that's a little odd because it's a Soviet holdover, actually. This is something that is really wild, is the Air Force Academy of Finland's unit insignia that they put on their uniform.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that is actually whack. That is still the insignia to this day. It's like, no, do not do it. So, in case y'all don't know, that actual emblem was not a Nazi emblem specifically. The swastika is just kind of like before Hitler took it and ran with it. It was just kind of an emblem, and everyone in the world used that emblem. There's actually a unit. I think it's the 46th Infantry division here in the United States. And let me see if I can find their old patch. Let's see. Let me type in old patch. And maybe it was the 47th. I got to show y'all this because y'all are going to be whacked out once you'll see that. You're going to be like, what? What the hell? Wait a minute, hang on. Let's see here. 45th. Okay, so let me go 45th Infantry Division. Oh, buddy. Oh man, this one's a little spicy. So this is the 45th Infantry Division's emblem today. That's what their patch looks like. But before World War II, and before the Nazi Germans kind of became a thing, their emblem was very different looking. It was this one.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
Man, that's crazy how many people used that symbol before the Nazis went and took it and turned it into like the ultimate symbol of evil. Like I believe, what was it? The Indians used that for like a good luck symbol or something like that. Now all the other militaries used it, including us.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy how one bad group of people will like destroy a certain symbol like that.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, the swastika was actually a universal symbol of good luck and fortune around the world for the Native Americans, for the Buddhists. I mean, the cultures that never even had any connection with each other in the world, all of them used the swastika. It looked exactly identical to each other around the world. And even in Southeastern Asia to this day, the swastika is actually a very common thing to see. Because it's not associated with Hitler and Nazism, it's still associated with its original meaning, which is a symbol of good luck and fortune. It was used everywhere. It was used here in the US military, it was used in the British military, it was used in the Polish armed forces. The Finns still use it today on their Air Force Academy insignia. But yeah, it's wild because Hitler took a pretty innocent symbol. It was actually a very good, positive symbol before the war, and a lot of people used it, and it was a very common one. He took it and he perverted it into something that it was so bad that nobody uses it anymore, although its original meaning was actually fairly good. It's just that people that don't really know the history of the symbol only associated with Nazism instead of the original meaning that it had, which was good luck and fortune. And that's actually exactly why Hitler took the symbol and ran with it as a symbol for the Nazi Party, is that the Nazi Party was supposed to be bringing good luck and fortune to Germany. And I think we all know that they did the complete opposite for Germany, but, you know, that is what it is. Still,
it's weird though when you look at it, when you look at that symbol, like even in that form right there, where it's like it's not meant to be Nazi, it's just a symbol, you know, before the Nazis corrupted it. You look at it and like there's like a certain like feeling that comes over you when you see it. Like it's not really fear, it's just like oh crap, like, you know, it's just the Nazis and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that now, I mean, even when I look at it, it just like hits you as like a symbol of raw evil, like it's just evil incarnate in the world. That's the way everyone in the Western world views this thing. And it's so unfortunate because before Hitler took it and ran with it, everyone used this thing as a symbol of good luck and fortune. I mean, hell, the swastika actually still shows up on some buildings in America to this day. Before Hitler came into power, it was considered a symbol of good luck and fortune. And some historic churches in America actually have swastikas adorned over the entrances to the church because it was a symbol of good luck and fortune. But still, pretty unfortunate. I thought I'd share that with you all about symbology and stuff, because it looks like the Ukrainian GRU's patch still has a little bit of a holdover from an older time in history when Ukraine and Russia weren't that bad off with each other and were actually somewhat all right. Although that's heavily changed since around 2014 and even before that. But moving on from that, and into our next bit of news, we did get to see the 12th Azov hitting Russian forces within the Severonsky Forest. When you see the Russians right down there getting bomblets dropped on top of them, they were a little too late to run. And some people were like, get to the news. I thought I'd just share with you all an interesting historical tidbit. Don't hit me. And thank you,
That was
Walter.
a famous rabbit hole.
And thank you, Walter A. Lakota, for mentioning that. We're trying to move off of rabbit holes. I'm trying to, quit cold turkey. But you are correct. It is a different variant of the swastika, but still all swastikas get thrown into that same bucket group nowadays. And we can see them
These
continue.
guys can't catch a break to save their life. No pun intended.
They can't. They can't. Look at them. It's a bash down there, Oh, man. I get a crack out of it. But we can see the 12th Azov is certainly getting a crack at him.
Crack Adam, like Adam of crack.
Aw, man.
Yeah, don't bring that up around certain people. They get a little bit excited.
Did someone say crack?
No. But somebody did say hot dog.
Man, the only crack I deal with is one you can fix with spackling. I'm not messing with that garbage. But anyways, we can see the 12th continuing to do amazing work here. Look at him go. And I'm glad to see that people like that rabbit hole, because it's one that is so tough to touch on, but it's still a very interesting one when you really look at the history over time and just completely remove it from the one group that went with it, ran with it, and turned it into the worst symbol that mankind has ever seen. Even ahead of the sickle and hammer, which I would say is the next worst symbol that the world has ever seen. But moving on from that and down into the area of Bakhmut, Russian forces are attempting to advance on Chasiv Yar, but the Ukrainians are, from what we understand, holding them back as best as possible. I'll actually be bringing y'all down to a frontline analysis in this area. Hopefully the map's been updated, and it has been. Showing y'all the past 24 hours, where you see the Russians are making no advances whatsoever towards Chasiv Yar, and the Ukrainians are holding them, but of course, it is a bit of a pitched battle. The 93rd did use some of their drones today to stop Russian forces in the northern flank. Well, you see the Ukrainian soldiers here moving through a burning tree line and continuing to engage the Russian forces.
What is that, a laser on the front of his gun? What's that red light?
I can't tell. I have no idea what attachment it is. Do y'all know what it is in the chat?
I thought maybe we were looking through the hollow sight for a second, and that was the actual red dot, but then it looked like it was like flying on the top of the gun or something. Could be a mall.
Could be a mall, like Darth Maul?
No, like a mall, like a MAWL.
Oh. Yeah, like Darth Maul. There we see that little outpost on fire while I'm just messing with Matthew. I know what you mean, though.
Man.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here.
Oh, there's somebody's shirt. I don't know how that got up there.
I wonder.
Most unfortunate.
And with that, that's the end of the clip, but very nice to see that they were able to, of course, keep the fight going up in the northern flank. Moving on from that, we did get to hear that the British Ministry of Defense is confirming what we're saying. It does appear that the Russians are attempting to move on Chasiv Yar. Huge shout out to the British Ministry of Defense for putting this into a summarized statement. But moving on to our next clip, we also got to see another unsuccessful attack happening down on the southern flank. And we can see them getting blown to pieces. And you see the Russian forces continuing to roll forward.
That Russian vehicle looks like one of those cement rollers or something. Oh
Man, it just got rolled like cement. Look at that. It's going to quick dry like cement.
dang, that was a guy. Did you see that?
Oh.
Was that a guy?
No, that was luggage, Matthew. You know how it goes. Those are backpacks and luggage. But it is some pretty movable luggage right there. I mean, it's kind of moving around a little.
Oh, damn.
That was wild.
Dude, that's like what? That's like a couple 100 feet.
Man.
Yeah, that is, man. It is.
Well, with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip, but suffice it to say, the attacks in the south were wildly unsuccessful today. Moving on from that and down into the area of Otradtene, we got to see a column of M1126s moving around the area. Big old boxy looking thing. I really like the wheeled armored personnel carriers. I think they're neat.
Man, they'd get stuck so quick in this mud.
Oh, dude, that one drifted. Look at it. Dude.
Very nice.
Very nice, though. Those little strikers are pretty neat. But moving on from that and a little bit further down the line, we're now going to be passing Avdiivka. I have no footage from Avdiivka. That's weird. So that's actually shocking. For some reason, I thought I had footage from Avdiivka, and that's what we were moving down to. But for some reason, no footage came out of Avdiivka today. We know the line's holding, but nothing came out to show. But with that, we're now going to be moving on down to Novomykolaivka, where you got to confirm that a T-54 was used as a frontline tank and got blown up at Novomykolaivka today. Picture proof right there. A T-54 put into Russian service in reality like 1947. But let me go make sure. T-54 first put into service in 1948. T-55 right there. But let me go get y'all a T-54. T-54 right here. Put into service 1948. T-54B destroyed in 2024. Overall, the Russians are suffering, and they're not getting any better off. They are doing worse and worse as the war goes on. But moving on from that and out of the Novomykolaivka area, it's time for us to move on down towards Volodar, where we got to see an explosion occurring in the area. Chad music ensues as this Russian turns into a soy jack. You see, you'll never win, Russian. I depicted you as the soy jack. And I depicted myself as the Chad. That's the end of the clip, but nice to see that they were able to blow that tank sky high. Moving on from that area, from Volodar and down near Huilopol, we also got to see that the Ukrainians built some defenses down in that southern region. They're working hard.
Oh, why'd they cover up the Volvo sign, though? I wonder. That's kind of weird.
Classified, Matthew. Classified. I don't tell you. Why the hell are you even asking? Someone report this.
It just turned into Vo. They took away the L and the, let's see, Volvo. They took away the L, V, and O.
L, V.
Yeah. Why is that so hard to think in your head?
Know.
Like, I had to really think that out.
I don't know. It was stumping me too. I was like, is that really what it was taking out? But we can see the rest of the trenches while I'm still absolutely stumped about the whole Volvo thing. And we can see them putting in the concrete bunkers. Prefabricated concrete bunkers. That's actually pretty cool. And welding them together.
Some nice work they're doing here. They apparently plan to keep these trenches for a good bit.
Oh yeah, they're planning on keeping them. The Russians ain't taking these, baby. But moving on from that and down into the area of Verbove, we also got to see some Russians getting some water. Hey, you got any water over here? Straight out of the puddle. That stuff be bussin'. On God. Dip that thing in that puddle water, boy. Get a sip. Oh yeah, that's that delicious puddle. This is that kind of water.
The Russians or the Ukrainians?
These are the Ruski Soldat. Getting a sip of that
Please tell me
water.
not to filter it.
Nah, man, he's not filtering it. This is just straight up mud water, straight out of a puddle.
Miss Diesel said mineral water. Yeah, it's got a little bit more minerals than you bargained for in this
А
one.
вот у нас
A little bit of
ручей,
microbes and
наш
stuff.
родник, из которого мы
Good old tapeworm water. It's like Fiji water, but Russian.
берем воду, потому что другой воды здесь фактически нет.
His comrades
Пропущенная
probably took a
через
crap
бинт
in that
и
water earlier today,
обеззараженная
just didn't tell him.
таблетками, ну, вполне себе нормальная.
This water tastes kind of sweet.
Ugh.
By the way, I don't know if y'all know this, but we actually know that I actually know this because I looked into in like history as a history major in college. One of the things I looked into a little bit was the discovery of cholera, which was actually discovered for the first time ever in London, I believe in the 1860s. But it was discovered because there was this one woman who lived way outside of the affected area, because there was an area in London at the time, there was a lot of them, but a specific area that was being studied where there was a massive cholera outbreak and people were dropping dead from it all over the place. And so they were trying to figure out what it was, and they found out why people were dropping dead from cholera, because a woman that wasn't even in the area ended up dying from it way outside of the area. And the reason why she died, and it was an old lady who died, by the way, is that she would tell her daughter, "Daughter, go get the bucket and go down into the city to the pump and go give me some of that water. The water tastes sweet." And the reason why the water tasted sweet is because sewage had been decomposing in it and it led to it having a sweet flavor, but it was absolutely laden with the bacteria that creates cholera. And thus the actual discovery of cholera was made then and there, and they found out at that time in history, for the first time ever around the world, that mixing poo water with your drinking water actually creates cholera and can kill you. And that's when modern sewage and water systems started to come into being in most modern countries at that point in the world. I just wanted y'all to know that. So if y'all ever taste water and it tastes sweet, like actually sweet, I would highly recommend that you go to a hospital immediately because it actually may be contaminated. But moving on from that, I just wanted to share that with y'all. A little health fact of the night. But moving
That's
on.
tough, man. Although it seems like these days, like the tap water is pretty rough, no matter where you are in America. Like it's not that bad where it's got giardia and all kinds of nasty other stuff in it, but it's getting there.
Yeah, I would have to say there needs to be a lot of effort put back into water infrastructure here in the States because it's really iffy depending on where you are in the country at this point. But hey, still beyond that, it's even worse in most other countries outside of Europe and North America. But moving on from that, we did get to see that the Russians are putting dummies back on the APCs. Nothing new. They've been doing that for 2 years, but literal dummies. And here's one of them. They're going to zoom in on it. And there it is. There are the dummies on top of the BTR.
It's weird. You almost couldn't tell the difference between them and the real Russians.
That's because there isn't any. There isn't any difference.
No, they're dummies. They're dummies, man.
They are the Russians. These are Russians. And also, a lot of people are talking about the quality of the water in different parts of the world. The water quality back where we lived was actually quite good. I love the water down there. But here in Birmingham, the water tastes like garbage. I don't know what it is.
Ooh.
Either the waterworks went bankrupt and they were never able to recover the quality of the water here in this city, or what, but the water tastes odd in Birmingham. I don't drink the tap water.
It's overly chlorinated, and it smells like chlorine when you drink it. And also, the water report says it's fine, like it's within acceptable levels. But it's like, what are really acceptable levels? It's like we have like pharmaceuticals and stuff in the water, and also there's like a certain level of like contamination that's fine in it. It's like, I don't know about that.
There's a certain level of contamination that the FDA finds acceptable in all food and drug items. And there's also a level of contamination that your local water board will find acceptable within your water supply. I feel like a new Food and Drug Act as well as a new Water Act should be supported and passed here in the U.S., not getting political or anything, but I feel like we should support more stringent qualifications and more stringent requirements on the amount of contaminants or adulterates that could be in water sources and as also inside of food and drug products. That's one thing that I think everyone can kind of get behind, because why in the world would we want to eat, drink, or use anything that could have a fairly high level of contaminants in it? We should always be trying to make sure that there's little contaminants and adulterates in everything as physically possible. And I feel like the government should be working towards that as soon as possible. I'll have my cabinet start looking into that, and we'll hopefully have a some kind of a resolution or an act on the floor of the House here within the next few weeks. But moving on from that, that and out of the area of the southern front, it's time for us to move on down towards Krenki, where we got to see the Ukrainian Army aviation in action for a short while today. And we can see here this epic footage of this. Dude, look at that. Man, that is sick. The cameras.
It's a good drone operator to get that footage too. It's like, what kind of drone are they using? This isn't exactly a like a, what you could call it, an FPV drone, because the camera quality is too good.
Dude, this is incredible looking. Look at that.
That's clever.
Man, sick.
Those missiles really fire like close off to each other too. They follow in really, really close distance.
This is probably the coolest video made of the Ukrainian Army aviation over the whole war.
I do like it so.
And with that, that's the end of the clip right there, but very nice to see the Army aviation doing its job. Moving on from that and out of the southern front, because there wasn't really a lot more to report from there today, it's time for us to move north to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 743 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach! Okay, we're good.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці і українки. Кілька підсумків за цей день. Провів нараду з керівником служби зовнішньої розвідки щодо поточних загроз і деяких чутливих напрямків нашої міжнародної роботи. Я вдячний усім світі, хто допомагає Україні з правильним фокусуванням уваги нашої держави. Продовжуємо роботу із партнерами. Провів зустріч з міністром оборони Великої Британії. Він сьогодні був з візитом в Україні. Я подякував за відчутне лідерство Британії в безпековій підтримці України, у посиленні нашої оборони та спільних можливостей світу захищатись проти російської агресії. Сьогодні обговорили нашу подальшу взаємодію. Пріоритети очевидні: ППО, далекобійна зброя, артилерія, постачання та спільне виробництво. І досягнення справедливості, щоб кожен російський вбивця і вся їхня терористична держава відповідали за цю війну. Ми вже досягли з Британією історично безпрецедентного рівня співпраці. До речі, саме з Британією ми підписали першу двосторонню угоду про безпекові гарантії. Маємо повністю її реалізувати заради нашої спільної сили. Сьогодні ж погодив і кандидатуру посла нашої держави у Великій Британії. Генерал Валерій Залужний говорив мені саме про такий напрямок для себе – дипломатичний. Міністерство закордонних справ України направило відповідний запит на агреман. Наше союзництво з Британією має тільки зміцнюватись. І є сьогодні кілька указів, про які варто сказати. Підписав 2 укази про відзначення державними нагородами наших воїнів. Ще 520 військовослужбовців Збройних сил. Кожен і кожна заслуговують на нашу вдячність і повагу. І сьогодні ж є указ про звільнення в запас строковиків, тих, хто був призваний на військову службу ще до початку повномасштабного вторгнення. Зараз на прохання військового командування потрібно кілька тижнів на підготовчі процедури, на заміну людей з точки зору оборонних завдань, і з квітня строковики будуть направлені в запас. Знаю, що частина з них підписали контракт щодо служби в силах оборони. Я вдячний кожному. Ще кілька речей за сьогодні. Мав честь вручити сертифікати та квартири героям України та родинам загиблих героїв. Це вже наша нова традиція особливої шани для кожного воїна, чия хоробрість стала взірцевою. Я хочу подякувати зараз усім нашим людям в прикордонних з Росією областях: Сумщина, Чернігівщина, Харківщина, усім, хто захищає ці наші регіони від ДРГ та ворожих обстрілів, хто рятує людей. Це надзвичайно важливо, і ми це надзвичайно цінуємо. Кожного і кожну, хто робить все, щоб нормальне життя зберігалось. Сьогодні Росія завдала чергового удару по Сумах. Є поранені, на жаль, є загиблі. Мої співчуття усім, хто втратив рідних та близьких. Російська держава обов'язково відповість за це зло. Наші воїни забезпечать відповідальність терористів. Сьогодні ж важливо відзначити, що у Європі ще одна держава стала більш захищеною від російського зла. Завершуються процедури щодо вступу Швеції в НАТО. коли безпека однієї країни гарантується, і коли ця країна здатна по-справжньому зміцнити спільну безпеку, кожен виграє. Це правило працює незмінно протягом усього часу існування НАТО. І я вірю, працюватиме і надалі. Зараз, у час російської агресії проти усього того, що зробило Європу мирною та об'єднаною, кожен бачить, наскільки важливо підтримувати альянси і партнерства, зміцнювати власну безпеку і дбати про безпеку сусідів. Швеція – сильний союзник і країна, якій можна довіряти. Я вітаю кожного в Швеції і кожного у Євроатлантиці. Україна завжди принципово підтримувала Швецію в русі у НАТО. Я дякую Швеції за підтримку нашої держави. Буде день, коли і Швеція зможе привітати Україну зі вступом в Альянс. Разом ми всі завжди сильніші. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто в Україні та з Україною. Слава усім, хто воює та працює заради нашої держави і людей. Слава Україні!
And Heroam
And Heroam
Slava.
Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 743 of the war in Ukraine. And it's time for us to move on into that second part of the stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all about whatever y'all want to talk about, whenever y'all want to talk about, wherever y'all want to talk about. Where are y'all? What are y'all doing? What? Butter sausage. What is it doing? Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, we're back.
Oh, we're back.
Are we okay?
Oh,
I think we got saved.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness gracious. Good googly moogly. That thing is juicy. And we're back on air. Guess what? Believe it or not, folks, the internet just got thrown off the air for me. Like the computer just threw itself straight off the internet. Just out of the blue. Have no idea why. But hey, we're back. We're doing our thing. We're chilled. We're in our zone. We're doing fine. But it's time to talk about anything and everything. And when I mean anything and everything, I mean anything. Let's talk about buttered sausage. What is it doing? Why is it here? Get it out of my face. But beyond,
Man, I think that's what took it offline was the Gary Busey impersonation. And the internet just said, nope, I'm out of here.
Dude, the internet literally just up and quit on me, and I'm not even paying it. It's just there. But anyways, with that, it's time for us to move on into all of them questions, all of them polls, everything we can. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we have one left, and the question on it says, as Moldova's separatist leaders meet with Putin in Russia, Moldova warns of a coup attempt on their country, and what are your thoughts? 42% said Russia will conduct a coup attempt, 33% said Moldova will be attacked by Russia, and 13% said Russia will simply try to scare Moldova. And in my opinion, I would not put it past Russia to put infiltrators inside of Moldova to conduct a coup attempt. These things can get some leeway if they send in these infiltrators and they're able to build up a following. That gives them just enough leverage to actually perform a coup. And even though it might not be successful, it will destabilize the country of Moldova and create panic amongst the entire population. So I wouldn't put that past them. And I also wouldn't rule out an attack by Russia on Moldovan separatist territories either to annex it from Moldova itself. I think both possibilities are on the table, but certainly Russia will definitely try to destabilize the country without a doubt. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that they probably are going to try and conduct a coup inside of Moldova. It will most likely fail. I have a feeling it's a high chance it will fail. Unless if they try and also use the armed forces in Transnistria at the moment. It might have a little bit of success and it might devolve into a full-on war, but it probably won't last that long because the Transnistrians are working with a very finite amount of equipment and resources, and they will not be able to last forever because there's going to be no resupplies possible of those forces. So going off of that, I have a feeling they will most likely try and conduct a coup, but it most likely will end up failing in the long run. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Frank the Tank, USN, who puts in a $100 donation. And thank you very much, Frank the Tank, who's also a longtime channel viewer as well, for always coming through and helping the channel to keep running. He says, let's digress. And if you were gifted with a superpower, what would it be and why?
And Frank the Tank, U.S. Navy, I salute you because you are an old guard of the channel and you've been here forever. And I gotta thank you so much for throwing in a massive amount of support. We are greatly appreciative. And to answer that question, If I was gifted a superpower, Matthew will answer this in a minute because we both got to answer it. If I was gifted a superpower, y'all all know what path I'm trying to take, so it's going to revolve around that path. I would like to have a superpower where I could think of a single decision in my mind, a single action or a single thing, and be able to predict what will happen because of that decision. So that way, you know, if you wanted to get into politics, well, if I wanted to get into politics, I could actually sit there and use that power to think, okay, so if I try and do this, what will happen down the road? And you can literally just see the future in that particular one-time instance over that one single decision about what that will create down the road as a direct consequence of that. So that way you know if the decisions you're making are good or not before you make them. I think that would be a great power to have. I think that'd be incredible. And that's the kind of power that I like. Because, you know, flying's cool and everything, but it's kind of just, it doesn't really do much. I mean, cool, you can fly, but, you know, you can just get a helicopter or something and fly around if you want to. So with that, I hope that does address that well. But Matthew, what kind of superpower would you want?
I would personally say I would go with super intelligence because if you had that ability, like Einstein levels of intelligence,
Wait a minute,
you could
I'm
pretty
sorry.
much figure out.
Excuse me, you mean
Do what?
Elon Musk?
No, no. I don't want that. I can live without
I
that.
think we can live without that.
Yeah, but if I had like Einstein levels of intelligence, that would give someone the ability to basically figure out any problem. So whatever situation they were put into, they could rationalize it and figure it out. If it came down to like rocket science or like, for example, trying to figure out geopolitics, they would be right most of the time because they're able to digest all the information and make a logical and smart conclusion. So I would probably pick that one because it'd pretty much be a good all-rounder. But that's just me.
And that is an interesting idea. That's actually a really good one because mine's just kind of usable in single instances. You have to think up something. But yours, you can just, you know, hell, you know everything probably. So pretty smart move. But I hope that does address that well, Frank the Tank. A very deep question. And I hope I was able to answer that quite well. I see a lot of people saying about mine, Matthew. They're like, dang, that's like paradoxical. You go insane. And probably, yeah, I'd probably go insane. But what, do you think I'm not insane right now? Do you think I'm not crazy? Look at me. I run this thing 6 days a week. I gotta be crazy to do this. I really do. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much for the unbelievable support, Frank the Tank, U.S. Navy, for being a massive part of this channel, an old guard through and through, one of the original viewers here on this channel. And I gotta thank you once again for supporting it and helping to keep running, because folks like you have made this channel possible, and I owe a massive thanks and a massive amount of gratitude to all of y'all who continue to be with this channel and continue to enjoy it even to this day and find it worthwhile to support. And so thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Pedro Martins Costa, who is also a longtime channel legend. He also throws in a very generous $50 donation, and thank you very much, Pedro, as well for that support. He says, "Go LSA, and greetings from Brazil, and sorry about our president here. We are pro-Ukraine and pro-Israel, and pick one from the live chat if you would, please."
And I thank you so much for the support, Pedro. And I thank you so much for being a pro-Ukrainian, pro-Israeli person. But I have to say this. This is something I always think, is that no one should ever be ashamed of their country. Now, you know, Brazil's actions are not pro-Ukrainian, not pro-Israeli necessarily. Sometimes. Most of the time, they're not. But I never feel like individual citizens like yourself, Pedro, should carry the burden of what your national government is doing. You might not agree with them. And I'm certain that you certainly don't agree with them. And so I never feel like y'all should be ashamed of where y'all are from. Because there's people like you down there. And y'all are a part of Brazil. Y'all are what Brazil is. And so I always feel like everyone should always be proud of their nation, because you should always be looking at the good things. And you should always be looking at the bright side of things, at least in my head. That's why I always look at America as being a great country, because I'm from here, I was born here, I grew up here, and, you know, sure, it's got its flaws. I know that as well as anyone else. But it's still an amazing country, and it's my country. So, you know, I got to be proud of it because I live here. I'm a part of it. So beyond that, I'm glad to hear, though, that you are pro-Ukrainian, pro-Israeli, and it's wonderful to know that you are one of our Brazilian viewers, which is actually a very, very small amount of our viewership comes from Brazil. But nevertheless, thank you once again. And also, we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. But also, really quickly, to talk about the whole being ashamed of countries and things, I cannot stand, like, this is one thing I personally can't stand, is when a lot of people like us here in America are pro-Ukrainian. and we're pro-Ukrainian through and through. We're Americans like every other. Just because we're pro-Ukrainian doesn't mean we're more American or less American. Everyone's an American all the same in this country, much like everyone's a Brazilian in Brazil. And when the government makes a decision, like, for example, it's currently tied up on support to Ukraine or not, and there's really no leeway or progress being made there at all at the moment, a lot of people will then say, I'm ashamed of America. I'm not ashamed of America. I love America. I think America's a great place. To say I'm ashamed of America would be to say that I'm ashamed of all Americans that believe like me. And I never want to say that, because there are a lot of Americans out there who are really proud people. There are heroes in this country, people who do incredible feats every single day. And to say that I'm ashamed of this country is to say I'm ashamed of them. And I'd never want them to feel the burden of disgrace that they're not even owed or even deserve, for that matter. And so I always say that I'm proud of America. And I do not want you, Pedro, to not be proud of Brazil. Brazil may be doing some weird things now on the governmental level, but Brazil is a great country. There's a bunch of great people down in Brazil, and it's an interesting country with an interesting and rich history. It was really the only country that America was afraid of in all of the Americas throughout American history. Brazil was actually a country America was concerned about. You got to take that as a point of pride right there. And on top of that, Brazil is the majority home to the Amazon rainforest, which is a massive natural treasure of Brazil, and a very neat thing. On top of that, y'all have all kinds of cool stuff down there.
That was very nice for Amazon to build that rainforest like that. Like, that was probably the most humanitarian thing Amazon's done.
I know, absolutely. Absolutely.
Man.
Jeff Bezos, Lord
Jeff
Bezos made
he
the
cruises
forest.
down there in his yacht. He cruises down there in his yacht and says, "What a nice forest here."
Oh,
Own that koala.
Dude, I was trying to add to you. I didn't know you weren't done, because you said, "What a nice forest." I was like, let me add that crazy laugh that he does. But anyways, keep going.
I was just saying, man, he just either flies down here or he comes down here in his yacht and says, "Ha ha ha! I own that koala and his family."
Dude, and then he rides the weirdly shaped rocket into not even orbit; it's just into high altitude. But beyond that,
I think Elon Musk, even though I'm not a huge fan of some of the statements Elon makes, I think he might have him beat on the space race thing.
no question about that. But at the same time, due to recent events, I wouldn't really be applauding the intelligence of Elon Musk. Just
Well, no, he
saying.
has people. Elon's one of these people that knows how to pick intelligent people to like make his goals happen. But I think Elon himself necessarily isn't that bright. I mean, he's smart. Like, don't get me wrong, you can't be dumb and create what he's created. But he's not exactly one of these people like Einstein or anything like that. Like, people try to portray him. He just knows how to pick the right people, and he surrounds himself with really smart people that make him look smarter.
He's kind of like a manager, kind of like Thomas Edison. He gets credited with a lot of the inventions, but they're not really his inventions. It's just that he was able to get a good team together. That's what my honest opinion is, and that's certainly starting to show as he's posting more and more on Twitter about his own personal opinions. And then some of the personal opinions are absolutely dog awful takes, and I just don't even know where you come up with that logically. But beyond that, I will say, Pedro, getting back to my original thing, you should never be ashamed of Brazil. You should be proud of it because you're a Brazilian. And I think that you're certainly a Brazilian to be proud of and to make the nation of Brazil proud. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we will make sure to get that live chat.
And the live chat question is going to go to, let's see here, Carrie Ann Corzo, who says, do y'all think former military make good ambassadors, or do they even adjust? And I'll personally say no. I don't think they really, like, I'm not saying that Zaluzhny is going to be a bad ambassador. It's just that it seems like it might be maybe a misplacement of his skills, because he's a really formidable military guy. But at the same time, it's like, the skill set required to be an ambassador is more like herding cats or something like that. It's like dealing with people to like persuade them. Like, one of the abilities in the poll is to be able to persuade people. And I'm not sure if the military folks are really up on that. Their persuasion is through weaponry, not through talk. But Enforcer, what say you?
Interestingly enough, I'd actually have to disagree. I think that military leaders, especially at the very highest levels like Zaluzhny was, are actually pretty good in a political, well, not really a political, but more of a diplomatic role. Because the job of a general at that level doesn't really have a lot to do with the actual conducting of martial activities in the field. It's more so a game of politics for them, but not on a domestic political field. It's more of the military political field, picking out commanders, balancing out who they are against against each other, making sure that heads don't butt too much, making sure that things can be done their way, more so through persuasion than anything. One of the best examples of that, and I think, Matthew, this guy is your favorite president, is President Eisenhower, who was the 34th president of the United States. He was known, Matthew, to be the best general ever, not because he was a great commander in the field, but because he was able to get all of these commanders to work together, like General Montgomery, Patton, Bradley, all those guys. He was great at getting them all to coordinate together, although they couldn't stand each other and hated each other for the most part. He was able to get them to work together. That's why he made such a great president in reality. I mean, you can't really say a lot bad about Eisenhower. And also, by the way,
I'd always heard he's a bit of a hard ass, is what I'd always heard about him. Like, he was the type guy who's no nonsense, no BS, and just got stuff done. And he really wasn't much into like trying to, schmooze people.
Well, he wasn't really a schmoozer, but he was still able to get things done and do it diplomatically. And that ended up working pretty well for him when he got into politics. That's how he became the president. And also, by the way, quick disclaimer: any president before 1960, anything that happened politically before 1960. Is kind of like a free-for-all on this channel because it's so long ago that it really doesn't apply to modern politics at all. So anything flies. You can actually make a statement like, well, Eisenhower was an okay president, and he wasn't that bad. So literally, just, to put that out there too, Eisenhower is literally the last president of the United States, according to our no politics rule, that you can actually say something about, because the next president after him is past 1960, so it's in the no politics rule. Just to explain that. But beyond that, wasn't that bad. I mean, and also 210 said, was he the president in the 30s? No, that'd be FDR. He wasn't a bad president either. He actually did fairly okay. Very different principles, very different ideas than Eisenhower had, or even his predecessors after that. But still, FDR didn't do that bad given the circumstance. But there was a little bit of a weird thing going on towards the latter end of his presidency and like his third and fourth term, where there was some idea that there may be a little bit of election meddling going on in there, a little bit. That's what the Battle of Athens is about, if y'all ever look into that. But beyond that, he wasn't that bad of a president. He did pretty good, great wartime leader, did pretty good trying to recover the economy, because there's not really a lot that a president can do or the government can do to rapidly make the economy recover, but he was still getting some pretty good leeway and chipping away at it fairly well. So once again, fairly good president. But with
and
that,
also he was looks like he was born in Texas, Denison, Texas. A lot of presidents from there in Texas.
a lot of presidents. What the hell are you trying to get? What are you trying to get at, Matthew?
Texas.
Man, goodness gracious.
I want to turn Texas into the new LSA headquarters. I'm trying to push for that in the background. I like Texas a lot.
Oh, by the way, Matthew, really quick note. There's Eisenhower, young Eisenhower, just graduated from West Point in a World War I era uniform pattern.
Oh, you couldn't even really recognize him from his older years and his younger years.
Yeah, and I gotta say, those World War I uniforms were drippy. I'm not gonna lie, I like them.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I think they were solid. Sadly, that I don't think that'll ever come back. And then they brought about the pinks and greens as a dress uniform thing. And I mean, I'm not against it. World War II dress uniforms weren't bad. But I feel like we could like wind the clock back another 20 years and go for the World War I uniforms for the dress uniforms, because those things were truly dripping. I mean, I'm not lying. I think they were great. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat.
All right, and up next, we actually have a 33. Oh, actually, before we get to this one from Hal Rose, we're going to address the poll that's currently running. It says, which ability would you choose? It looks like most people would choose human superintelligence, which is the one I went with. Looks like 27% wants to have the ability to forecast events, accurately, of course, and 20% said the ability to understand and persuade. So, honestly, I could see benefits to all three of them. I would still go with the superintelligence, though. There's a lot of people that, quote unquote, have the ability to forecast events, but not really good. So presumably you'll be doing it right this time with the ability here. But only 20% said they want to have the ability to persuade. What say you, Enforcer?
I would say I'm still heavy set on the forecasting event side of things, but it was actually kind of close on those two. But human superintelligence won out in the end, which isn't a bad one at all. Honestly, they're all not that bad. But I'd still go with the ability to forecast events. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And Matthew, I bet you there are some people out there in the world, they give anything to be able to forecast events that were happening to them, if you know what I mean. But with that,
Yeah, some people can't see like a foot in front of their face. Some people can't see it. Some people never see it coming. And and that's really like the super intelligence would help solve that a good bit, because if you're a really intelligent person, you can sort of deduce things and understand sort of what's coming down the road. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. But like someone just I saw John Albrecht say in the live chat that the ability to forecast events would mean you could win every sporting event and make a lot of money. You could do that. I guess you could. I guess you could kind of like bet on things where you can sort of like predict the result, like a football game or something.
But Matthew, superhuman intelligence, that is a good point, because if you had some superhuman intelligence, maybe you would have the intelligence not to do something stupid enough that might get you striked down. You know what I mean? Stricken, disgraced, downright smitten. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Hal Rose, who put in that $33 donation, and thank you very much as well, Hal, for that support. Longtime channel viewer, by the way. He says, Enforcer Matt, in my opinion, the citizen warning for Moscow was politically motivated, and elections are coming up. And what say you? And pick a question, please.
Sadly, I can't comment on anything that may be a politically motivated move for the United States, considering that was a U.S. embassy. So unfortunately, I can't speak on that end. Many people, I will say this, I also know this full and truly, that because it's election time coming around, America is currently losing its mind. And so the political scene is more violent than ever, and it's already ultra violent as normal. So it's, wildly violent. It's violent beyond compare at the moment. So I want to make sure that we carefully tread through this year, through election time and past election time, and don't end up stepping into a political quagmire, because that's one thing that I want to avoid as best as possible. So unfortunately, I wouldn't really be able to address it in that vein. But maybe the U.S. Department of State has heard something that was concerning enough that the warning is legitimate. And at the moment, we would have to assume, considering it came from a government source, that the warning is legitimate until proven otherwise in the future. But still, thank you for the support. I hate that I can't answer that question, Hal Rose, but I hope you understand that I'm making sure to get through this whole political election time as best as possible. Because if you've seen anything that happened today, we can't touch anything revolving around U.S. politics, or even anything really with the government anymore at all, because politics this year seems to be such a pervasive thing that anything touching the government is going to be an inherently political topic, to the point that we can't say anything without being partisan, because people are going to force us to try and pick a side. But with that, we will make sure to get that live chat, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to Mr. Anthony, who says, why warn Russia of imminent extremist attacks?
They're probably not trying to warn the Russians. They're probably trying to more so warn the American citizens, but in turn warning the Russians. Probably because we're not behind the attack. We don't really care if they know or not. And that's, of course, assuming that we're not behind the attack, which I would hope that we're not. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, because I guess if we're not behind the attack, we don't care if they know it's coming. But with that, thank you so much once again, Hal Rose, for sponsoring that live chat, and of course helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to John Allen, who puts in a $20 donation and says, truth. Do you think Putin will be alive in 6 months?
Possibly. I would actually give it like a 65-70% chance he will probably be alive in the next 6 months. So greater than half, he will probably be alive. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again, John Allen, for the support. You're an old guard and a channel legend. I got to thank you greatly for helping this channel to keep running and asking an interesting question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, real quick, I got a few requests from multiple different viewers here to look up Ike's hometown, which was, I believe, Denison, Texas.
So, yes, it was. It was Denison, Texas, but he was raised in Abilene, Kansas. So let's say Denison, Texas. All right, so where is this in Texas relative to everything else? So this is right on the Oklahoma border. So north
That's like
Texas.
barely in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, literally right here. This is the Red River. You cross the Red River, you're in Oklahoma. So let's drop down.
Wow, so he was just barely Texan.
Oh, look, here it is. Here's his birthplace right there. That house.
Oh, they made a whole attraction out of it.
That's it.
Huh. Look at that. It's got like the little railing and stuff going up to the front of it. It's kind of different.
Yeah, that's a easy access ramp
Oh,
right there.
okay.
Yeah, because
I was about to say it looked like it. I was wondering if it was with the house. I was like, surely they didn't have that way back in the day.
no, originally it would have just been steps, but they changed this so that way people could get in the house. But beyond that, let's see what's over here. A spare railroad tie and some really weird. That's weird. Anyways, let's look at this house. Oh, it wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty nice looking.
Sort of out in the middle of nowhere though, but the grass is green.
The grass is always greener. But, you know, also, let's go check out Abilene because that's where his presidential library is actually. So let's go here. And we ought to be seeing it somewhere around here. Let's see here. Where is the presidential library of Eisenhower? Ought to be around here. Let me just type in Eisenhower Presidential Library. Eisenhower Presidential Library. And where the hell is this? It is in Abilene. I missed it somehow. I was in the wrong Abilene. That's why. But this is Abilene, Kansas. And here is the Dwight D. Eisenhower Presidential Library. Every president gets a presidential library. This one's Eisenhower's. It's in Abilene. Abilene is where he actually grew up. Denison was where he was born, though, and kind of like lived in his very early years. But, you know, as his family moved, I think around when he was like 5 or 6, he then grew up pretty much the rest of his life in Abilene. But his presidential library is pretty solid. This is actually the staff car that he used as general of the army, I believe it was. And oh, nice, nice, real nice. I like it. No, that's nice, real nice. But
You know,
anyway,
Eisenhower was one of those presidents that, like, if any president deserved to be president, he was one of them. Any of the military guys that fought in the wars and stuff like that and was involved with it, you know, they earned the right to be there, like unlike some others.
well, we're not going to divil down that path. But with that, I hope that does address that
I
well.
mean, that's not really political. That's just the truth. They served the country in the ultimate way, so they really earned it.
Well, you know, I mean, like, you know, some other people earned it without being generals. You know, like Teddy Roosevelt. He only volunteered. Like he made it.
But he was in the
volunteer.
military, though.
Not really. It was a volunteer unit.
Well, I mean, he was in it.
Well, I mean, yeah, we're stretching what the military is. I mean, maybe, but like what he did is pretty much just raise a militia of random people, which you know is a whole other thing. Like let's see here. Let me see. Let's see. So yeah, let's see. Years of service. So he was in the New York National Guard. And then the only command he had was the 1st Volunteer Cavalry during the Spanish-American War. So that was, you know, a volunteer unit. Not really the U.S. Army specifically, more just like volunteer guys, and it was the Rough Riders of that, so he personally handpicked all these guys. But nevertheless, military service kind of. Sort of, you know, but the National Guard, he didn't do anything there. You know, he wasn't like an amazing war hero or anything. He just served for a couple of years and then moved on. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Norman Austin, who puts in a $20 donation and says, do you think when the Ukrainian aid package is passed, that Ukraine could start pushing the Russians back and reclaim lost lands in Slav Ukraine?
Yes, I think that when it's passed, Norman, and it will eventually be passed, I hope. Although, you know, I can't get into that. But beyond that, hopefully it will be passed. I would say that they will probably push back the Russians and reclaim the land. Honestly, I have a little bit of hope that they'll be able to do that before they even get the support package. And some people say, no, don't say that because then we won't support them. No, I think that's a great sales pitch. If they're beating the Russians now, imagine what they'll do when we give them some support. You know, they'll really beat them. And so that, I hope that does address that well, Norman, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And of course, Slava Ukraine, and long live the Lee Spring Army.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from BC Skyman, who is a channel legend. It goes without saying, he is the channel legend, and I don't see any comment attached to this one, but of course, BC, thank you very much for that support, and we appreciate it very much. So, Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep running. You make it possible. You've made it possible. And you're an old guard of this channel, and I'm going to thank you greatly once again for being here with us forever since day 4, and still being here with us to this day. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Lord Lathos, who puts in a 10 and says, odds, question mark. China is going after Taiwan after the U.S. sends the majority of our reserve stock of supplies to Ukraine, question mark. Is Russia and China in cahoot, question mark. And Russia drains China and backs North Korea and takes on Taiwan, question mark.
I think that China is probably not going to take on Taiwan, probably for several years at this point, because a lot of people are saying that things are escalating in the Taiwan Strait again, and so far over the course of the war in Ukraine, things have escalated in the Taiwan Strait again and again and again, at least 5 times now. And then it will eventually de-escalate, and then it'll start escalating again. It's kind of like a natural cycle at this point. Going off of that, I don't think they're going to be trying to take Taiwan even during the scope of the Ukraine war. It'll probably be after the Ukraine war is over that China will begin to make military aggressive actions against Taiwan. So I'll say they may be working together, but not working together to try and have some kind of a grand master plan, because this master plan was also talked about before the war in Ukraine even began, because Putin and Xi met at the Beijing Winter Olympics, which were happening at the time, and everyone said, oh, they made a deal. They're going to invade Taiwan and Ukraine at the same time. And then Russia invaded Ukraine, and still, over 2 years later, China still has not invaded Taiwan, which makes me believe they probably will not while the war in Ukraine is going on. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And moving on to our next one here, we have a $10 donation from Herp Derp NV, who's been around for a very long time as well. And thank you very much for your support also. They said, I got a nice hood request for a change. Lake Tahoe on the California and Nevada border, especially Emerald Bay and also Sand Harbor.
Emerald Bay. Where is Emerald Bay? There's Crystal Bay. That's like Camp Crystal Lake. And let's see here.
Why is this lake like the black hole? Like, it looks like it just isn't like nothing. Like you're going into space or something.
Good question. I don't know what that is. Dude, look at that. The thing is literally pitch black. Like, all the other water, nice and blue. This thing looks like you fall in it, you die. Like, but let's see here. Let's see. Emerald Bay and Sand Harbor. So let's go around and find Sand Harbor first. Oh, look, Homewood. Yeah, let's see here. There's Emerald Bay. So this is the one we got to look at here. Actually, is that Emerald Bay? Is there anything in Emerald Bay? It looks like nothing's out of here, but we'll drop down on the road here and take a look at it.
And also, people are saying it's very deep and has low oxygen. That's why the water looks like that from a satellite.
Oh, well, actually, this is nice.
That's in the hood.
Yeah, this ain't no hood. Herb Derby, you lied to us. This ain't no hood. This is just beautiful countryside.
Prank 'em, John.
Oh, you already know it. But anyways, dude, this is actually gorgeous. We ought to go out here one day.
I think we've, I was about to say we drove through this area, but this looks like Yellowstone a little bit, somewhere through there. But yeah, it's beautiful looking out here.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Look at it. And then let's see, what's the other one? Sand Harbor. I'm expecting more natural beauty now that we saw that one. So, Sand Harbor. There's South Lake Tahoe. So now we're working our way back around. And let's see here. Cave Rock, Glenbrook, Skunk Harbor.
What's skunk? Let's see skunk. Man, I don't see any skunk.
Man, I don't see no skunks. I just see dogs. Got
There's
that
a
dog in them.
Man, he's got that dog in him. Oh, they got a lot of dogs in them.
Dude, they really did. And I clicked on it right when you were saying that. I was like, dang nabbit. But we got to make sure to get on to Sand Cove. Where the hell is this place? There's Incline Village. Have we gone all the way around the lake? I'm just going to type that in. Sand Harbor, Lake Tahoe. I'm so lucky that I don't have to type a lot tonight because I can't type worth squat. So, oh, we passed it.
Oh,
Here's
right
Sand.
there.
Well, look at that.
Oh, wow, that's nice. That water looks so clear. Like, if there's any water you're to try to, like, drink it straight out of the water, like, from the place, from the source, this would probably be it, even though you'd probably be dumb to do that, but this would be the better one.
Matthew, what happened to our ability to, like, make coherent sentences? Because I feel like I've been making the stupidest sounding sentences tonight. I can't even talk tonight at all. I don't know what it is.
He
Maybe
just roasted me like slyly.
no, because I can't talk. And then you said, "Man, this looks like the water that you would drink out the water." And I was like, "Is that water?" I was like,
I was trying to think like what do they call that? The source, the aquifer, the reservoir. I was like running through all the like Rolodex in my mind of the words to use for it. And look at this guy. What's he doing? Look at that floating cigarette in the water.
Where? Oh, it's the buoy.
Yeah.
Dude, it's got the
Why do they
fucking
make those
chip
things
and
look like
everything.
cigarettes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, oh man, watch out! Someone's gonna think it's a blunt. But anyways, moving
Man, he's gonna
on.
try to put his whole mouth over it and try to smoke it. Man, get your ass off that cigarette.
It's not.
It's not a blunt.
It's not an addiction. I just gotta smoke it everywhere I go. But man, that's
That water turned a little bit different.
man. That water looking a little nasty. I would drink out of that water, looking a little nasty. But that's really pretty, actually. No lie. It's just perfectly clear.
It's so nice.
Man, now I have more respect for the Tahoe SUV. But moving on from that, thank you so much, Herp Derp NV, for giving us a hood review that is certainly not a hood review, but I'm going to give it the honorary title of hood review because this was a beautiful place, and I thank you so much for sharing this little beautiful spot with us. Who would have believed that this lake that looks like a death pit would be one of the prettiest places I've seen out in the West? But with that, hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Carrie Ann Corzo, who puts in a 5 and says, Nick and I just want you guys to know you're doing great, and we appreciate you. And we appreciate you, Carrie, and also Nick as well, the LSA couple. The LSA, what was the term we used before? I'm forgetting.
Let's see. LSA
First couple, was it?
Yeah, LSA couple.
First couple. Yeah, it was first one. Not the first. It was the first one.
Two cheers. Dude, what is going on
Okay,
tonight?
now I am chopping it up. I'm chopping it up right now.
Dude, I don't know what's going on tonight because I've been feeling like I've been doing that all night too. Like I feel like most of my sentences make no sense.
Yeah, I'm chopping it up, man. I'm chopping it up.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, man. I think it's that I caught a clip, a small little snippet of politics before we came down here, and it's freaking jumbled my mind. So
It really does. Whoa, Jack!
Whoa, Jack! Whoa! Have you voted for me for Congress? You know, and it is, and I know I'm saying that about that one thing that happened today, but it's literally anything that I watch that's politically related, no matter who's on TV. It's like it turns my brain to mush. I just can't stand it. I don't know how I'm going to become a politician or even handle or stand being a politician, but y'all can damn near bet I will become one just for the fact that I want to see change. It's not because I like them. It's not because I like anything about it. It's just because I want to have a few things done and then leave. But moving on from that, thank you so much once again, Carrie Ann Corzo, for enjoying what we do and appreciating it. And tell Nick, still thinking LSA, that we love to know that y'all are the first couple of the Leaf Spring Army and are still here and are still enjoying it. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Carl, who puts in that 5 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Carl, for that support. I'm telling you what, Carl with the exclamation points behind it. Somebody's yelling, Carl! But thank you very much, Carl, for the support. And also, huge shout out to Thomas Kruger, who put in a 5 and said, Enforcer Matt, especially spicy tonight. And I don't know what it is. It's something in the water or something like that these days. That delicious Birmingham tap water with the pharmaceuticals in it. It was added a little bit of extra pharmaceutical in it tonight because I am feeling quite alert and awake for once, even though I'm chopping up the words like hell. But anyway, so we're moving on to our next one, which goes to Dean London, who puts in a 5 and says, double espresso nitro fun?
No, please don't.
And I say thank you, but that sounds like a heart attack.
Dude, that's worse than a charged lemonade right there. I'm dropping dead. But still, thank you so much for the support, Dean London. But please don't. I'm telling you, I don't know how much longer I can handle this kind of caffeine intake, y'all, because I think I'm going to have to start cutting back because it is hard to go to sleep after these streams. I drink that much. Even if it's 4 in the morning, it's still hard to go to sleep. But thank you for the support, Dean London. Thank you for the double espresso nitro fun. And I will be looking into absolutely getting jacked off of caffeine. And so with that, thank you so much. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Neil Vizanon, who puts in a 5 and says, I can't say a lot due to OPSEC, but there are missionaries in Russia. And sorry for not being here last night. I was sick as a dog. That's okay, Neil, and I hope you're feeling better as well.
And I would have to say, I hope you're feeling better as well, Neil. And also, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I hope that they're doing well. And also, perfectly fine not being here tonight, Neil. Everyone can't be here every night. Even the most loyal members of the Lee Spring Army have to take a few days off here and there. And I completely get that. And so, with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from the B93, who says, do you think the Swiss will give their unique weaponry and angry carrots to Ukraine?
No, because they made that pretty clear a little earlier on. It was like a year ago or so. They said, we're not going to be sending weapons directly to Ukraine. Other people can buy it from us and then send it to them, but we're not sending the weapons ourselves. So I don't think they're ever going to become that non-neutral. I think they're going to maintain their neutrality in that regard fairly well. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for the support. The B93, absolute channel legend and old guard. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Point of Guinness, or I think it may be a pint of Guinness, but I think I might have typed it wrong. But they put in a 5, and thank you very much for that support.
It's
point of Guinness.
Yeah, it is a point of Guinness.
So he's got just a point of the Guinness, not a pint, just a point. He says, keep up the good work. And will a coalition of nations put boots on the ground against the Houthis now that 3 people have been killed on a ship in the Red Sea?
Oh, points of Guinness. By the way, to probably explain the name, it's probably a mix of a pint of Guinness and a point of order. And a point of order is a parliamentary action in the United Kingdom, considering he's a British viewer. And a pint of Guinness is also a pretty British thing. So it's like, point of Guinness, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to say that Dodgy Dan, get him out of here, throw him out. Like, like all that crap. You know what I'm talking about, Matthew?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Dude, that was hilarious. Parliament is a fun thing to watch. But beyond that, I will have to say, sadly, I don't think they're going to be putting a coalition of troops on the ground because 3 Americans died up at Tower 22 up here near Automf, and we bombed everyone. We didn't put anyone on the ground, but I feel like it was a kind of fair response that we did, and it did cut things down for a while. But sadly, I don't ever think we're going to be sending an armed expedition into Houthi-controlled Yemen. Although I think it would certainly help to speed up their demise much more quickly than they are right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Point of Guinness, and I thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, and I thank you for enjoying it and being a longtime viewer and an old guard as well. Thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says Russia has lost more men in this war in 2 years than the U.S. lost in 4 years of World War II.
And that's right. That's true. He's actually truthing right there, Matthew. The British have lost more. Well, actually, the Russians. Oh my lord, man, I'm really getting mixed up tonight. But the Russians have lost more soldiers than the U.S. or Britain did in World War II at this point in the war.
And it's not because of a good strategy. That's because of a bad one. And it's not because their forces are necessarily worse off than others. It's just terrible training.
Amen. But with that,
facts.
I hope that does address that well, Dark Warrior 137. I don't know if you can tell, but I think Matthew and me are both falling apart behind the scenes right now. I don't know why. Like, I can't even explain it, but I feel like both of our English skills are deteriorating as the night goes on. But nevertheless, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. You're a legend, and you make it possible. And thank you. Thank you greatly. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to LSA Sergeant Figman, who's Sarge. He puts in a 5, and thank you very much, Sarge, for that support. He says, I didn't know if you knew it or not, but the Swiss are still, to this day, holding on to stores of Hitler's stolen personal effects.
LSA Sergeant Figman, I've got something even better. They still have a bank account open, I believe, at the moment in a Swiss bank for Osama bin Laden. They're just a silly group of people, the Swiss. They're not silly because they're like stupid or anything. They're just silly because they just do their little thing, a little bit of Nazis here, a little bit of Al-Qaeda there, a little bit of CIA here and the KGB there. I mean, Switzerland is just a free-for-all. And that's true, actually. They do have some remnants of Hitler stuff in Switzerland to this day. Which is crazy because Hitler actually hated Switzerland with a burning passion and said it was a pimple on the face of Europe and wanted to see them destroyed eventually. And then that's when the Swiss came up with the idea of turning their nation into a massive fortress. And there's still holdovers of that to this day across all of Switzerland. And that's actually where they got pretty much all of their bunkers that they would use in the event of a nuclear war. Fun fact. But with that, also, by the way, I believe the Swiss operation to stop a German advance was Operation Redoubt, and the German planned operation to invade Switzerland and take it over was called Operation Tannenbaum. Just to give some extra fun facts in history about the Swiss and the Germans, or more so Switzerland and Hitler. But still, thank you for the support, LC Sergeant Figment. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Neil Visinot once again. And thank you, Neil, very much for the second support of the night. He says, and he put in a 5. He says, here's a question, Enforcer. Who would you spend the night with? You have to choose, number 1, Putin Satan, or Chris's mom. I'm going with Chris's mom, hands down, like no question.
I'm going with if I had to pick those two options. If I had to pick one, it would be Chris's mom. I'll take Chris's mom.
Putin Satan, man, that's like a combo of like dastardly people, like the worst.
Man, the worst, Sherry, the worst. I would pick.
Only they can make it worse if they said Putin, Satan, Hitler, and then that would make it the ultimate worst.
Man, that's literally the trinity of the most evil people you can imagine. Dude, what would be even worse if it was like that episode of Star Trek where they're like, you have to fight for the spectacle. We have Putin, Satan, Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin, and Mao. You're like, damn, they got the whole lineup. Like Mao?
Not Mao Zedong.
Not Chairman Mao. He's going to starve me to death. Man.
He is the chairman of the party.
Man, you know, Matthew, I was just thinking about this. You remember that radio call where that U.S. aircraft was flying through the South China Sea and the Chinese got onto the radio and were like, this is Chinese shower of God, and they went through that whole thing, and then at the end, the guy went, meow. That was in honor of Chairman.
So.
That was in honor of Chairman Mao.
Oh, is that for real?
No. No, I'll pull it up, though.
That
if you
doesn't
can't
sound
remember.
real. That sounds fake.
Let's see. Chinese guy
That sounds phony.
on radio, meow. Let me see if I can find this. Here we go. So I'm going to have to turn her up, bring her over here, let you all have a listen.
Military aircraft, please identify yourself.
This is the Chinese Navy, this is the Chinese Navy, this is the Chinese terror sky. Please go away quickly in order to run judgment.
I am a United States military aircraft conducting lawful military activities outside national airspace. I am operating with due regard as required under international law.
Man, what the hell? Space Invader. Man, why does the Air Force pilot sound like one of those like constitutional auditor people when the police roll up? Like, I'm conducting lawful activities in this area. Please leave me alone. It's my right. It's like, why is he saying it like that?
Dude, he's about to literally sit there. If that conversation continued on, that guy said, please leave, wrong judgment. Again, he would have said, you're a tyrant. He would have said something like that, and then the Chinese guy still would have gone, meow. Oh, man. But
Like, leave the area now or wrong judgment. It's like, can you rephrase that one more time, please? What does that mean? Wrong judgment.
Dude, that's like those Chinese work posters, that they put up in the factories. You remember that, Matthew?
Oh, yeah. It was like, employee is angel if you work overtime, but devil if you take salary.
Yeah, it was literally crap like that. Dude. Oh, man, that cracks me up. But anyways, beyond that, I do thank you so much for the support, Neil Visinot. I hope that does address your super chat well. And thank you for being a channel legend and an old guard at that. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in the 5 and says, as always, thank you. And the work you put into the verification of information for the public is ethically unfounded anywhere else. Thank you for the work. F hot dog.
The ending was gold. But I gotta thank you so much for the support, Wyatt Logan. I gotta thank you for enjoying the awesome word, brother. Spread the word. Amen. And also, thank you so much for enjoying the channel. And thank you so much for enjoying the work we do put into verifying our sources and getting the story as correct as we possibly can based off of what we do. It means a lot to me, and I love to know, Wyatt Logan, that you're still here and enjoying this channel massively. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And of course, F the hot dogs, hold the relish. But with that, we're on to the next.
I think we're getting a double dose of all man today. Oh, jeez.
Aw, man. If I'm wrong, strike me down. But with that, we're on.
And he got struck. Oh,
Oh!
oh! I guess that should have been a
Oh!
message. Oh, it should have been a sign. Oh, it's a sign.
Oh, it's a sign, and we were blocked. We were blocked. Well, so much for that. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Wyatt Logan. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Mason Wolfie, who puts in a 5 and says, "Can we get a rest in peace for Akira Toriyama, who's apparently the creator of Dragon Ball? He passed away today."
And I gotta thank you for the support. And I will say, rest in peace. I don't really know a lot about Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z or Akira Toriyama. But nevertheless, I do thank you for the support and rest in peace to Akira Toriyama. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Larry Morrill, who puts in a 3 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Larry, very much for that support. And we appreciate it very much. And we also have a 2 from LSA Sergeant Figment, also known as Sarge, once again. He says, "LSA, hit the like button." And LSA Sergeant Figment makes that an order.
And make it a tall one. But nevertheless, thank you so much for the support, LSA Sergeant Figment. And I do agree. LSA, hit that like button. We're all like, we're booling on the likes tonight. I don't even think we need to ask, because we're up to like 2,300 likes right now, which is actually fairly high for these streams. And so with that,
it's fairly well.
And that's a statement that we make on this channel fairly well. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the Uncovered Cube, who's already left for the night, but they put in a 2, and thank you very much for that support. And hopefully you'll hear this tomorrow. They said, "Thanks for everything, LSA and a marmot."
Hey, and thank you for everything, Uncovered Cube. And if you uncover a cube, what is underneath the cube? Is it a sphere?
A square.
Oh my lord. You've got to be kidding me. They said be there or be square. And my brother, oh boy, he turned into an uncovered cube. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. I'm absolutely losing it over here. But nevertheless, we have to get the marmot. It is marmot time. All right, so
bring him out.
I feel we are so damn dry tonight, dude. I didn't segue that well at all. I literally just went, "Hey, it's marmot time. We have to get the marmot." But anyways,
bring that man out.
Oh, hello there. Hey, hello there. It's the marmot.
Can I interest you in 2 plums or 1 rock? Why do you zoom in on those plums like that? That's kind of sauce.
Aw, man. Aw, man. I was going to make a
Wait a minute.
piece.
Zoom in on the plums and then zoom in on the marmot. Look at those juicy plums. Suck on these, man. Suck on these.
Have you ever heard of a Sugandese plum? Suck on these nuts, boy!
Zoom into the fly. Oh man, I don't mind if I do.
No! Oh no!
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Getting dirty. Down and dirty.
Down and dirty. Dirtier than Chris's mom. Gotta give it a lot of respect to Chris's mom. But anyways, beyond that, thank you so much for the support, Uncovered Cube. Thank you for your 5th super chat in the history of this channel. And thank you so much for giving us a little bit of marmot time. I hope you all have enjoyed it. And of course, everyone's pointing out that the marmot's got cake. That thing do be caked up. It's no lie. That thing do be caked up. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Death for Real. We're not faking the death here. It says Death for Real. $2 donation. And they said the fly stole $2 from the marmot.
Oh man.
Oh man. Yeah, I couldn't do it that time. I don't know why. Oh man. You gotta get warmed up for that. It's not my natural state to do that.
Oh man. I always do it by believe I'm like doing some gear shifting sounds for a car, you know, like a Honda Civic, you know, go
I started thinking about what if I had to be the hot dog man. I'm like, I would probably sound something like this. I can't even do it. Man, I would sound the most depressed if I had to be hot dog man. I'd be like, I would be putting a whole new like meaning to the term "oh man" if I was actually the hot dog man.
That sounded wrong, but you know what, you get what I'm getting at. Beyond that, thank you so much for support. That's for real. And the fly did steal $2 from the marmot. Aw, man. But that's okay because the fly will be stricken down eventually. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you, Death Per Real, who makes death not that real, actually, for us at least, because we won't be starving under a bridge tomorrow. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And Matthew, I think that was actually our last super chat.
And that is, you must be looking at the spreadsheet. So with that, we're moving into our live chat questions. And up first, we have one from Hoodoo, Texas, who says, if France is serious, why not send some Leclerc tank?
I know, right? Like, the Leclerc's not bad. It's a 3-crew tank with an autoloader. Runs a diesel engine. Ukraine would love this thing. I don't know why they don't send them, though. I mean, honestly, the UAE has like 500 of them. So if anyone could give them, it'd be the UAE. The French have like 200 something of them in storage and another 200 something of them that are operational and in service at the moment. So why not give them a couple of Leclercs as a treat? That's what I'd say. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that, well, thank you so much for throwing in a question. I hope that does address that well. And I got to be honest with y'all, usually I would want the live chat segment to last quite a while. But tonight, for some reason, I feel like my mental faculties are so slow tonight or so worn out for some reason. I think we're going to cut down this question segment to probably last for only like the next 8 minutes or so. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Peter Summers, who says, do you know anything on the Google employee giving AI secrets to the PRC? I personally haven't heard about that, Peter, but I heard today that another Army individual, not an Army soldier, what the hell am I talking about? Army soldier gave away secrets to China, and they got indicted or arrested today, one or the other. And it seems like that's becoming a recurring theme in the armed forces, is people selling secrets, which indicates there's a lack of loyalty or something going on in the military. It's causing people to do that in pretty large numbers, it seems like. We've seen a lot of those cases in the last month alone. So I'm not sure what's up with that, but folks need to get a grip on it because we can't be giving away our secrets. But Enforcer, what say you?
Punishments need to be harsher. Put them in prison for life. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one. That's all I got.
And the next one goes to Craig Alex, who says, is there any confirmation of when Ukraine will be given jets?
Sometime around early summer. We know that for sure at this point. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Anonymous, who says, is it possible that the terrorists will strike Russia during their election?
It's possible. It is entirely possible. It is something that can happen. And I believe that it probably will. But with that, I hope that does address that well. I have no reason to believe that rather than I believe it. So there's not really a lot of backing I can give there because there's not a lot of historical precedent to terrorist attacks happening during Russian election times. But we are on to the next one.
And I see another question from Anonymous, who says, Enforcer Matt, can we get an item of clothing in the merch shop that says I am LSA on it? I'm assuming that they got the inspiration for that from Zelensky's shirt that says I am Ukrainian on it. That is possible. I am LSA, like just simply the line of text on it that says I am LSA with maybe like a leaf spring or something behind it. That is a good idea. And I actually wrote that down because I'm going to actually draft some designs of that because I like that idea a lot. And also we're redesigning all of our merch. We're only going to like bring over a couple of old items from our old merch store into our new one, the sort of like legacy items. And it's going to be just a handful of them. It's not going to be a bunch. But they will be on there, and in much better quality, by the way. Much better quality and also cheaper as well. So great on both fronts. We've gotten the price of the goods down quite a bit. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that Matthew is doing an incredible job running this merch store. Well, getting it ready to go because he's the one doing most of everything for it. We are going to be bringing over a couple of cool designs and creating new ones as well. And that is probably going to be one of the new ones. Matthew, you know what we could do is actually we could put I am LSA and then put a small LSA eagle up there above the text line.
That's something we could do as well. And also Anonymous, I forgot to mention that they put I am LSA and they put the Ukraine flag behind it right there. You know, I know you're against putting the Ukraine flag on things, but we do represent Ukraine, and that would look cool with like the Ukraine flag behind it.
What if we did the LSA and Ukrainian flag?
Like on one shirt?
Yeah, on one shirt. Like we just put the flag side by side above the text line or below them, below the text line.
That would be neat.
That would be
neat. I do like the I am LSA though, because it does like it's like a not I don't want to say a parody, but it's like a replica of Zelensky's "I am Ukrainian" shirt, but it says "I am LSA" with the Ukrainian flag behind it. I think that would look pretty iconic looking.
That would be pretty cool. I think this time around we might be a little bit more liberal with our approach to putting some Ukrainian imagery, very limited amount on some of the merch, because after all, 10% of all profits will be donated directly to United 24 through the merch store. So,
That's right.
so we are supporting Ukraine in a way, and also, we're still, we're covering Ukraine. So why not? Why not? We'll do that. We'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that. I don't know what is up with me tonight, Matthew, but I feel like I need sleep. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Lawrence Todd, who says, "Now that the T-14 is a dead end officially, do you guys think that we'll ever see any of them in any capacity? And I know they won't be in Ukraine."
Absolutely not. That thing has a historical relative, the T-35 land ship, which I will show you all here. Because there was a time in history where the Soviet Union had to do everything bigger, grander, and better than everyone else. And so they built one of the biggest tanks that was actually used in combat outside the Char 2C in France. This is the T-35 land ship, which was a pre-World War II design. The Soviets ended up making a very small number of these things because they were wildly expensive to produce, and then they ended up abandoning it before the war even broke out. If I remember correctly, they were in service from 1935 to 1941. They were produced from 1934 to 1939, and there were 60 of them built with 2 prototypes. A very small number of these tanks ever made it into service. And it was more so of like a parade tank to make the Soviet Union look advanced, really modern, and really powerful. But beyond that, didn't really see a lot more than that. They rarely even use these things on the front line for that matter. Kind of like the Char 2C. Right here. This was actually the largest tank ever put into service by weight, even to this day. And it was a stupid design. It was wildly expensive and very inefficient, and it was already obsolete by the time World War I was over. So when World War II came around, these things were loaded onto trains and transported all around France to show how powerful the French army was. Then the Germans broke through the Ardennes forest, and then the French army wasn't that strong, and the British weren't that strong either. They went back running across the channel, and then the French decided, I believe, to blow up all of these things and just destroy them so that way the Germans wouldn't have them. So that was the end to the Char 2C. So I have a feeling that the T-14 Armada will probably be going down the same path as the Char 2C or the T-35 land ship. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this is actually going to be the last one of the night because this is our last one in the spreadsheet, actually.
Well, I be dipped. We are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Leonce Pierre, who says, "I have seen reports that Belarus has started ejecting Russian soldiers, and does that mean that they're going to keep the new nukes and throw the Russians out?"
Oh, that's a good question. It's possible, especially considering if they're able to hijack the nukes appropriately or without any hiccups, they might actually be able to commandeer the nukes and run them themselves. So I can't give you a complete certainty on that because that would be a first in history. So we don't have a historical precedent to work off of there. But it's possible. I wouldn't say it's out of the question. It's highly possible that Belarus could be trying to distance themselves from even the Russians and get their own nuclear arsenal by pretty much just stealing it. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. It has been an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to run this stream for every single one of y'all. At the peak tonight, there were 5.9 thousand people watching, and 43,000 people have watched this stream before it ended. There are still 3.3 thousand people here, which is unbelievable considering that the stream has been going on for 2 hours and 40 minutes now. We are entirely honored by each and every one of y'all's presence here, and I've got to say that I have nothing but a massive amount of respect and appreciation for all of y'all finding this channel to be a high-quality news source. If y'all have enjoyed tonight's stream, I can promise you it's way better than this most times. We were actually both exhausted tonight and ended up running the stream somehow, some way. But if you enjoyed it still, make sure to subscribe. You're going to be joining an entire army of 165,290 subscribers who also follow this channel each and every day. mostly every day we put out a short war summary, which is around a 10 to 12 minute long summary of the war's events if there is news to be covered. And we also run nightly, every single night, 6 days a week without fail, except for Mondays, these war streams. So you can always count on us to be here covering this news. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great stream and being here all night while we chop it up live on air. Chopping it up, I'm telling you what. And thank you all for another great stream. And Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And get some rest.
The Lee Spring Army sends its